This time, there's a change of personnel, as Roger Moore makes his debut as 007 in Live and Let Die. Directed by Guy Hamilton, written by Tom Mankiewicz. I'm going to mangle more names here, so watch out.
You got that one right.
I did. Starring Yvette Kotto, Julius Harris, Geoffrey Holder, Gloria Hendry, David Hedison, Clifton James, and introducing Jane Seymour. So what do we reckon to Roger's debut?
I'm going to get Dave starting this one, because he's I've normally started, so I'm going to break with tradition and let Dave go first.
I had a lot of fun with this. I the last Legacy review we did was Diamonds Are Forever, obviously, because we're doing them in order. We'll forget the little break we took. And with Diamonds Are Forever, I was sat there thinking, oh my God, Tom Mankiewicz, what have you written there? Oh God, Sean, you've played that really badly. Oh God, the editor. Oh God, Tom Mankiewicz, so on, all the way through that film. With this film, there are a few points where I go, oh God, Tom again, because there are a few lines I don't like.
It's very cringeworthy, this movie.
There are one or two scenes I think run a bit too long, but that's about it. When I think about it, I can't believe this is the same director as who did Diamonds. I really can't, because...
But can you believe the same guy did Goldfinger, though?
No, it's tonally a very different film from Goldfinger as well.
Completely different.
We'll get a little bit into that when we start talking about sort of Roger's casting and all the rest of it. There is a definite attempt to distance from what's come before here, but they've come up with a different spin on the 007 character. And whilst I can see some early precursors to where the series goes with Roger, and some things I'm not happy with, it's all very restrained here. And, where I expect him to mug and pull a face, he doesn't quite. And, I have to say I had a very good time with it, with some caveats.
Yeah, I mean...
Definitely.
Roger's always been the one that... I've always called him, like, the fun Bond, He's the one who always, like, all wink and, like, a bit campy and just, like...
Nod, wink, wink.
Yeah, just like, embracing the fun of it. But when he started off, he did kind of like trying to keep that little bit of edge to him, and I think what we'll find with watching Roger is that he still kind of maintains that even in the silliest times. He still kind of has moments where he kind of turns on like a bit of like a little bit of grit, a little bit of like sternness.
He does, but I think at this stage it's in keeping with what's going on around it.
Yeah.
With some exceptions. There are scenes I'm not that fond of, and we'll get to them. But later in the series, and I'm thinking of something like For Your Eyes Only, when anyone says Roger Moore was a complete clown in the role, somebody somewhere who knows Bond will say, yeah, but what about that bit where he kicked Emile Locke off the cliff in that car?
Yeah.
It was very dark,
and they're
wasn't
absolutely right, but it's tonally completely at odds with almost everything else Roger Moore ever did. Roger Moore wasn't comfortable with it, really didn't want to do it. And whilst we don't want to get too much into that film, as I say, brutality and Roger Moore don't quite go together. But what he's got in this film is a bit more balance.
No, it brings a real kind of lightness of touch and also portrayal to the role as well. Because Roger's kind of not one for violence. Like, he doesn't like, he's quite scared of guns.
He's a lover, not a fighter.
That's the one. That's the word. Yeah, definitely. That really sums up Roger's era, I think. Well done, Chris. Good job.
Good job. Yeah, but he does like I do kind of like amuse myself when like Roger gets in the tussle. He's just like
he's got some good remark,
It does. He's not quite Lazenby when it comes to like the fighting. He's very much quite. It's not quite. He's not very good at the fighting scenes, I would say.
It lacks that punch.
Yeah,
he's not. But at this stage, they're still. And as I say, we'll talk about specific scenes as we go along. But at this stage, they're still kind of cutting around that relatively effectively. There were a few scenes where things would happen at pace, where I'm thinking, well, the Roger Moore I think of wouldn't have done that scene. Anything over walking, he needed a stuntman. Mm. And at this stage, he's still doing... we're never going to get him confused with Lazenby. We're never going to get the fight confused on the train with Red Grant. But, only 4 years later, we get a fight on a train where he's punching the man's metal teeth and going, ow, and mugging his face and all the rest of it. And there's none of that at this stage. No. This is a very, very good debut performance.
No, yeah, the fight between him and Teehee is like a little bit more restrained, as it were. But yeah, that's a very strong debut for Rog.
It felt watching this. It felt like a remix of the franchise. It's like it being revamped into something different, and I think that came with like a new Bonds and Rogers' approach. It just like especially with like George Martin doing the score. It felt very poppy, felt very lively, and it has a sense of jollity to it. It has a sense of like kind of fun, even though that hasn't been there previously. It has a sense of liveliness and a bit of has a pop kick to it, even when like
the score's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's a whole mishmash of like funk
Except
and soul.
there are a couple of points where we get to the end of sequences, and it finishes off with a sort of sting that will sound a bit like Batman 66.
It's a little bit,
But-
yeah, that's true.
But that's I think in about 3 or 4 places. The score overall I really liked, and we must note this is the first score that has no John Barry involvement.
No, it's Beatles producer George Martin.
Yeah, it's quite evident, really. I mean, I think that's what I sense more when watching it. It's also the first Bond film to kind of suggest supernatural elements as well.
Yeah, with the voodoo.
Which it doesn't really establish like. It doesn't sort of like confirm things like with Baron Samedi and what's going on there. What his role is, I still don't understand.
No, I think it's deliberately left quite mystical, isn't it? You don't kind of know. He's the chief of the Legion of the Dead, but you don't know what he does, and does he command an army of zombies or something? But no.
Yeah, and is Solitaire really like predicting the fortune? Yeah, I assume she does, and then she gives it away to Bond.
No, that's it. Because we on the
Bond tricks her, which is kind of like I don't know.
Let's row back a little bit.
Yeah,
that's a little.
Yeah,
bit
we'll
further on
discuss that.
in the film.
But
So should we go through bit by bit and sort of dissect each scene, I guess.
Becca, tell us briefly what you think before we get on to
Yeah, I think it's fun. But yeah, as you were saying earlier, Dave, I think later on in the Roger Moore kind of series, he's kind of known for more sort of like campy fun, and this is perhaps a bit more pared back. It's not as silly as like Moonraker, or even the next film, Man with the Golden Gun. That was bizarre. But yeah, I had a great time watching this film. There's so many great lines, even in the opening sequence. Some of the best Roger Moore lines in the whole series. Just had a really good time. And I remember watching what was it called? Was it Premium Bond with Mark Gatiss and Matthew Sweet?
Yes, it was. Yes.
And they said it was more like was it blaxploitation Bond? And it's like, well, it kind of is. It's more of a blaxploitation movie than a Bond movie, but still, it's still great fun. So
yeah, I guess was blaxploitation films all the rage back then? I mean,
you've got Gloria Hendry and Yaphet Kotto in this. Both of them were in Across 110th Street.
Yeah, definitely.
A couple of years before, which we now know as the sort of opening music to Jackie Brown more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But that really famous Bobby Womack song, Godfather of Harlem, that Gloria Hendry was in as well. I don't know if Coffee and Foxy Brown had happened yet, but certainly we are smack bang in the middle of this era.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's everything that's popular at the moment in that kind of that genre of cinema.
And it's the first film for that Bond actually goes to New York, isn't it? And it's quite like a city urban setting for him to kind of.
It is, because we had the Fleming story 007 in New York, but this is like the first time we see him go there on screen, which is amazing, I think. And you were there recently, Chris, so.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I've been there. But, it didn't, it looked kind of quiet, though, in this film.
It's not very busy, is it?
I've noticed at a few points during this film, and as I say, we'll get to it. There are some places they go where there's just no one around. But the film actually starts, obviously, we go pre-title, and with the exception of... Well, From Russia With Love didn't technically have Bond in the pre-title, but it did have the Bond actor. Can't think of another pre-title at this stage that's not had the leading man in it.
No, Roger's been in most of them, hasn't he? He's in the series, I think.
Yeah, and it's an odd one. I mean, firstly, basically what we're set up with is a number of British agents are being killed off, and it's all related to. Well, we get a death at the United Nations in New York.
Yeah, the UK ambassador.
The UK ambassador to the United Nations is killed.
Which gets killed by sound.
He gets killed.
Yeah, sonic death.
By some unpleasant music.
Lifting music.
And
a really high-pitched frequency
and
to his ear.
you also wonder what those people in the sound booth just didn't notice that guy going and
Yeah, his
switching.
interpreter, definitely. He was like, who's that mysterious figure behind me messing with? Didn't notice that, did
And
he,
there's no
obviously?
panic. There's no get him an ambulance or anything. There's just...
No, they're a bit relaxed for a while, and they're like, oh, he's fallen over, you know, and you think, oh, wouldn't you be more worried about your UN colleagues?
Well, it
Clearly
does,
not.
It does cut away quite quickly, so, you know, it gets straight to the point, doesn't it?
True.
And then we go on to New Orleans,
New Orleans.
which was the first place I thought, because I was in New Orleans earlier this year, and it was the first place where I thought, this is really, really quiet. There's no one there. Obviously, there's the funeral march, but it is like a deserted film set. And yeah, we pitched into the middle of a funeral while a guy looks at the Fillet of Soul restaurant.
I love that kind of line. It's like, whose funeral is it? Yours.
What I really like about this particular death is just how eerie it is. How he got all. It's like Karam. I need to say Scaramanga. Then is it Karam? Is it Caramanga? Fucking hell. Anyway,
Keep going, Chris.
the bad guy basically. He's kind of like in control.
Kananga.
I thought you were trying to say Kerim Bey. I thought, what's from Russia with Love got to do with it?
No. But he's like in control of all these. Like basically like this whole village are willing to like take part in this guy's death, and in a kind of elaborate kind of way. I mean, like
Elaborate hoax.
like yeah, it's just really kind of weird to get basically this whole community walking around like, oh, doing a fake funeral. Oh, we're actually gonna kill this guy. Then we're all gonna celebrate
And it's
all
the centre of
jollily.
New Orleans. This is not some quiet village.
Yeah,
No, it's like
This is a major
Bourbon Street or
American
something.
city.
yeah.
But it wasn't the fact that they did that. I mean, you know, that would be enough of a distraction. It was the fact there was no one else there. Before they came round the corner, there were two guys on a street corner and no one as far as the eye could see.
No.
And I went to New Orleans in February and you can't move.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe it was a sign of the times, but I think
Got more touristy in
I think it
the
adds.
40 years.
Yeah, I think it adds to the effect a bit more. I would say it's like artist integrity. I think maybe a little bit. You know, just
I mean, I
like
didn't really have a problem with it, but
Yeah.
I just noticed that, you know,
No, it's
if
kind
it
of more
wasn't that I
eerie and a bit more
recognised it as New Orleans, it could be a backlot.
yeah. But I just like the change up and how like kind of like the get all this sort of community with like women and children and just seemingly like normal, they're not like all shifty guys in polo necks, just like, you know, who are all clearly like hitmen working for like some gangster. They are actually people, and it's just a little bit eerie how that is kind of effect. I think it adds to the film of like the mystery and the kind of
It adds as well. It adds to the villain as well because
Yeah.
you think, well, he's got a lot of pull, as
Yeah.
you'll
He's got
later
control
see in
over
New
people.
York. But at this stage, we've got seemingly unrelated murders, except, well, we find out just the other side of the credits that they're all British. You've got a British delegate to the United Nations. You've got a British agent, MI6 agent, on loan to the Americans who's in New Orleans watching the Fillet of Soul, or Fillet of Soul. It's fillet in Britain. The Fillet of Soul. And then you've got
Voodoo,
the island of San Monique.
which isn't real. It's fabrication for this film.
Yes.
yeah. But basically, like a guy bites like an unconvincing rubber snake. He gives like, you know, a guy gets bitten by a rubber snake basically. When this
Yeah,
guy's
with no bite mark or anything.
No.
I wonder how he dies.
And it's literally like you can see it clearly pushing it into his face, and like not like the snake actually goes for him. It's literally just like, oh, there you are, and you're dead.
His face.
Yeah,
It's a bit creepy though, because the guy who does it, wears this goat skin on his head. It's like,
Stop
ooh,
for a
right?
second, Becca. Cut
sorry.
from where Chris just finished. You come in after that. I've just switched my test top fan on. Has that caused any problems with sound?
no, I
Oh,
didn't
no,
know.
it's fine.
I didn't notice.
All right, carry on. Sorry, from where Chris finished with about the snake. Carry on, Becca.
I was just saying that, the guy who thrusts the snake in his face has got this big goat skin on his head, and it's very creepy.
And he's clearly loving it as well. He's clearly having a whale of a time. Going like, oh, there's a snake. Oh,
Yes, we are at the unfortunate impression all black people dance at this stage of the film. But yeah, so we've got three.
They've got souls. You know, they've got rhythm.
You can tell from all three of them, they're all British. The first one is sat at a desk with the United Kingdom written in front of him. The third one looks like the most British man in the world. The second man speaks and has an English accent. So we know 3 agents in seemingly unrelated parts of the world, but on the America's continents, if you like, have been killed. And we go straight
James
to
Bond
credits.
must investigate.
Yeah. And we go into Paul McCartney.
Yeah. Is it the first pop group of the night to do a
I
Bond
know
tune?
it's not Paul McCartney solo, or is it? Is it?
Paul
is
McCartney
it...
and Wings?
It's
Yeah.
Wings. It's Paul and Linda McCartney wrote it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that came up on a quiz on Wittertainment, and
It did.
and they said, oh no, I've got Paul McCartney here, not Wings.
They said it was like Duran
Yeah.
Duran or something, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they were like, no, actually, it's Paul McCartney and Wings.
I thought it said performed by Wings, but to be honest, it could be either. But
Well, either way, what do you reckon to the theme tune? Do you rate it, or do you hate it, or what do you guys reckon?
I mean, I like it. It's a firm favourite for me. But it is a bit odd. Again, it's like it suits the film and like a really tonal shift for Bond after having like what's gone before. Now you got this like jazzed up pop tune.
Yeah,
Which
despite the kind of rather grim
yeah.
subject matter, it's got a very like jazzy kind of
Yeah,
funk soul infused beat to it, I guess.
yeah.
I think it's fine, and I think it's used in the score pretty well. I'm not as in love with it. It tops a lot of charts for people, best songs and all the rest of it. It wouldn't be that high up for me, but I like it.
No, it's good fun. And they also like the title sequence as well. There's lots of skull motif. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I've got a cold. Skull motifs.
Yeah, it's a lot of skulls, a lot of fire, and a lot of Afro women. Just like...
And tribal art as well, which
Yeah.
is very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you're not enamoured, Dave.
I'm not that fond of most of the Maurice Binder sequences. I'm really not. I appreciate what they've done for the series, and I appreciate they sent a template that in some respects we're still following. But nearly all of them I look at and think they look pretty shit, actually.
No, I suppose it's not that great, I guess.
It's not to my taste at all.
No.
But there's only a couple of his I've ever liked.
Which ones are they?
Okay.
Without spoiling.
I
spoiling,
like not thematic. I mean, they're not as strong thematically as Daniel Kleinman's, but just in the flow of them, I quite like The Spy Who Loved Me, and I quite like his last one as well. I don't mind the License to Kill one, but most of the rest of
I like that one as well, actually. Yeah.
I think the rest of them just look a bit tacky. I just think all the way through, they look like they were filmed in a morning somewhere, just quite cheaply, and they probably were.
Did it quickly, last minute. Quick, we got to film this. Quick.
Yeah, I mean, some of that has been what Daniel Kleinman's done in recent years. I don't mean to slate it, to be honest. It did what they wanted it to do at the time.
Yeah, they all bring a different tone to it, don't they?
They're not something I generally enjoy.
So whiz past it. Quick, skip.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to listen through the song and stuff, but not many of them stick out as among my favourites.
Okay, moving
Okay.
on.
Next.
So that's it. Right, so after the credits type. Oh god, I can't even talk. What do we see next after the credits?
We see Bond at home for the first time ever, and he's and of course he's with a lady.
Hold on, this is the second time ever we see his flat, isn't it?
Doctor No.
Did we see his flat in Doctor No?
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Oh well.
Shocking, Chris.
Sylvia
Shocking.
Trench is putting in his bedroom.
Oh okay. I thought that was like a hotel room somewhere. Okay, never mind.
This is the first time we see Roger's Bond's flat. I
Okay,
guess.
yeah, and it's quite modern, really. It's quite hip. He's got a coffee machine. Very flash.
Is that all it does?
Yeah.
Oh my god, don't we see that being used at excessive length?
That takes quite a long time to make
in this
a cup of
day and
coffee.
age, where we've all got coffee machines, you just hit a button on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see this in excruciating
Uh,
detail.
Boil a kettle in less time, you know.
And this is with a lady. And what's funny, you find out why in a minute.
Yeah, I mean,
At the
I
very
mean,
start, he's trying to hide it from Em, and I'm thinking, why? You're a grown man.
exactly. I mean, I always thought
Mr.
that.
Caruso has
It's
been
like, why
missing
would
now for a
M give a
while.
shit? It's like, but I do like his Wall's response where like he gets woken up like dead early by knocking on the door. He's like, you wouldn't have any chance of being married, are you? It's like,
Husband's on the lookout.
Yeah.
You're asking at slightly the wrong time.
Plus,
It
M
turns
questions him.
out
So, do you know where Miss
he's
Caruso is?
congratulated on the Rome mission.
Yeah.
Italian mission or whatever.
Yeah, we don't know what it is. Their home affair.
And he's
What is it?
basically absconded with one of their agents. And that's why he's trying to hide it, because M is like, you haven't seen her, have you?
He's like,
No,
no.
sir.
Yeah.
She's hiding in my wardrobe.
And Moneypenny at this point suddenly looks a decade older.
Yeah, she does, bless her.
Yeah. You didn't see her very much. This is like her only appearance in the film, so.
Yeah, it's probably for the best. Though it is a bit weird how Moneypenny finds like the girl she's sleeping and covers for him, like a little bit. She's not like,
Oh, allow me, quick!
Yeah, she goes to hang up the coats, doesn't she?
yeah,
And also, there's no Q scene in this movie. There's kind of apart
Yeah,
from
Q's
the
not in
magnetic
it.
watch. No, it's very gadget light and Q-free movie, unfortunately.
Yes, Llewellyn wasn't available.
is that why?
No,
Yeah, he was off filming Follyfoot, and he finally negotiated himself some sort of free time to do it.
good.
By then, they'd sort of written around him.
Well, good for him.
So the only gadget is a watch.
Yeah, with a magnet watch.
Watching a sword.
Yeah, which can
That's quite a
deflect,
cool gadget, I think.
which can deflect a bullet from a long range. Which I love M's response, which is like, I'm quite willing to test that right now.
I mean,
And then
imagine
if
if
you
he sets that off in like a hotel or something,
Yeah.
and some woman with a zip up the back of her dress comes flying through from the opposite side of the corridor.
Sheer magnetism, darling.
It's quite powerful.
Yeah, but I was like, was there not anything else metal flying around as well? It's like,
Yeah, that's it. Be rubbish.
yeah,
But it's reasonably efficient storytelling. I mean, we don't see Emma's office in this, but he's given his mission. He's told that basically what's happened, and he's sent off to New York.
yeah. To meet Felix Leiter. So he gets a taxi at the airport, doesn't he?
Yeah, and all the same, the music's really good over that section.
Yeah.
And
It's really funky.
you hear a voiceover from Jane Seymour's Solitaire explaining that a man comes over water,
Really. Raise eyebrows.
which is not something we saw. It must have been a deleted scene.
He means he's flying. He's flying in air,
Yeah,
and he doesn't travel alone because it's a public flight.
And you notice how...
And he brings death and destruction.
Yeah, that's the one. And her cards say 007 on the back of them as well.
Yeah, that's a bit weird. I picked that up on this watch. I was like, hang on, that's a bit of a convenience, isn't it? That's a bit of a...
I never noticed that before. I was reading up about the film. I was like, oh yeah, they say 007 on the back. How weird.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like he had his own brand of cards.
I didn't say.
So
yeah.
see, that's how he managed to get all those copies of the same card with all lovers on them.
Ah.
Yeah, he just went into the James Bond catalogue
And ordered these tarot
mail ordered
cards.
them.
It's either that way. He went to the shop and bought so many packs of cards and just
But all of them, right.
yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah, so he picks up the rental car, and he has a few problems along the way, doesn't he?
Yeah, we get a first glimpse of Whisper, which is like, I suppose, is one of the many henchmen in this film.
Yeah, Mr. Big has a lot of henchmen.
Oh, he's Whisper in the car, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, and we also get some lovely Tom Mankiewicz dialogue again. Oh no, that's a bit further on actually when
cringe.
he gets the taxi. Yeah, but it's so basically, Miss Kananga is warned that Bond is on his way. He will know it's Secret Service because they've basically already been killing agents who are investigating, and we'll get to what they're investigating a bit later on. And so they shoot the driver of the car Bond is being driven to New York City in. And so we get basically an out-of-control car with Bond in the back of it.
Yeah. I always thought this was kind of like a little bit of an insufficient way of assassinating Bond. I mean, yeah, okay, you put him in a bit of a predicament, but it's not really guaranteed death, does it?
Well, yeah, you've got something that you can shoot through the window at someone driving the car. Bond is sat right behind.
Well, it's his.
Well, just assassinate Bond rather than assassinate his driver.
Well, no,
I don't-
but the driver's driving with his window down, though. I think.
Ah,
Well, that's handy.
not whole.
Yeah. But I
How
agree.
convenient.
You would come up with a better strategy to kill. Yeah, personally, I mean, like, why not drive him off a cliff or something, or
Drive by shooting.
yeah, or something, or I always think sniper his ass. Like, as soon as he leaves the car, just like set up outside Felix's building, just like, you know, just like
that'll bring the series to an abrupt end, though.
Well,
We
yeah,
wouldn't be
but
here.
No,
into
we regenerate into Timothy Dalton.
Oh, okay. Skip 7 movies and just
Yeah,
regenerate
this
like
guy
that.
with a Welsh accent and just sat there going, you know, what am I doing here?
But yeah, it's that sort of slow dipping mechanism thing. It's like, you know, you come up with like much more better ways of killing someone if you really want them dead, and it's just like, you know, is that really the best way? I mean, the only real figure away, unless it's more kind of like a warning, and if it happens to kill him, oh great. But
It is an action sequence that suits Roger Moore's Bond quite well, because not only is he sitting down, he's not even actually driving.
No, he's not.
That is a Roger Moore era action scene. He could just sit in the back.
No, just grimace.
But we meet Felix Leiter, and it's a new guy again.
Yeah.
Edison.
Yeah. What do we think of him? Because he's the one in License to Kill, isn't he? He does.
He pops up again. It's not like C. Cylinder or who do we get later on?
I guess.
John Terry, who's like a complete non-entity.
But
yeah, I think in terms of ranking the lighters, as you would do, he probably sits atop.
Yeah.
Top of the list.
I think he's probably up there. I think he's only second with the current Felix Leiter.
Oh, Jeffrey Wright, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's more.
He's there because he was in License to Kill.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, he's in your favourite film, so yay.
He's fine, but we're in Manhattan. We have an action sequence, and then basically Bond is sent after Kananga because they've run a partial plate on the car that the driver was shot from. So now he's without a car, and basically he follows Kananga into a building, and they lose him because Kananga's recorded a whole sequence of him talking.
Yeah,
Putting a flag in there.
it's like he's giving like a big speech to the Senate, and he's like, right.
Too many of our island neighbours. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And of course they all change, because my first thought is because Jane Seymour takes her coat off and it's like she's forgotten to get dressed. But of course
In
that's
negligee.
because they've got to dress them. And they leave, and we later find out what that's all about, but they basically leave in a different car, and Bond has to jump in a taxi driven by Tom Mankovich's dialogue.
I'm guessing you're not a fan.
It's just hey Jim.
Yeah.
Hello, Jim. How you
Oh, for $20, I'll drive to Ku Klux Klan.
I know, it's just
He's heading on in.
It was cringy, very cringy.
really bad.
Oh, I kind of like that guy. He kind of
Hello,
cheers me
Jim.
up.
Relax, sit back.
And the cab driver immediately gets on the radio, and there's people on the radio all the way through the route. So even shoe shining guy.
He's heading east.
The guy who's having his shoes cleaned didn't think this was on.
Which is kind of like, doesn't make any sense when the actual guy driving is in on it as well. So that makes all pointless the fact that you got a guy on like each corner going like, oh, he's heading this way.
He's heading this way, he's heading that way.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
No.
But
It just goes to show that he's got so much sway and basically he controls everybody in Manhattan. So
it actually conveys that pretty well.
yeah, pretty much. That's the only purpose of that.
So yeah.
So
He goes into a bar where you can get a cheeseburger for 70 cents.
bargain.
I know.
Exchange rate was obviously a lot better back in those days.
Hasn't it?
Does that come with fries or?
I think it's 80 cents with fries. Grace, let me get the film on and I'll call up their menu for you.
We'll have a booth, please.
Yeah, I'll jump in the time machine and jump into a fictional world. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
If you order a bourbon and branch water, apparently if you have it neat, that costs extra. So
Yeah. But yeah, this
I
is
find that funny anyway.
This is one of the many
Sorry, I
times
had a
where
big bridge flashback then. Carry on.
this is one of the many times where Bond enters the establishment and then gets like sort of taken away to somewhere else by a moving table, like a sliding door or something like that. It just sort of
Yeah, sits down at the table and it got a revolving. Revolving booth.
Yeah, this time it's a booth and he gets taken to Mr. Big. Basically, he meets like a bit more henchmen and things like that.
But by this point, he hasn't kind of put the whole Mr. Big Kananga thing together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think.
Well, he thinks Kananga is in with Mr. Big. Because
Yeah, sure.
He's
They don't know that. Plot spoiler, they're the same person.
Yeah.
Mr. Big owns most of Harlem.
Which-
Just the mother that told you uptown.
Parliament.
I'll be doing very bad impressions throughout this podcast. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, come on, let's hear one then.
Well, we'll do JW when we come to it.
Yeah, this is, I mean, what do we think of Mr. Big? I mean, he's kind of set up as the second villain, but like, was any of you surprised? Like, I mean, his makeup doesn't look a bit, does kind of give it away, really.
It's kind of obvious it's the same
not
guy.
right, but in all honesty, it depends. I mean, I would have first seen this on the small screen, back when the small screen was the small screen.
Yeah.
Cathode ray TVs.
Sure.
And something definitely didn't look right. But, I mean, that could have been an actor with burns or anything.
Yeah, he looks kind of quite
I
scarred
mean,
in his appearance, doesn't he?
Put it on the modern TVs we've got now, and yes, it's clearly a disguise. Whereas I think when I first would have seen it, I would have just looked at it and thought something's not right there.
Yeah.
It looks a bit weird.
Would it have played better had you never seen Mr. Big? He kind of built it up as like a big thing, like the building up to like this other villain, and then would that have worked better? You think?
Well, yeah, Bond would have had to not see him as well, though, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Because obviously, Angus seems to be at least semi-well known.
But he doesn't really do much anyway. I mean, like he's basically in two scenes, and this one scene, he kind of just walks in and goes like, yeah, just kill him. Before I even hear anything.
Yeah, it kind of gives us our first taste of Mr. Big, really, doesn't it? Because it just basically allows Bond to escape from his den, as it were.
They could easily had like one of the guys like walk into like the room where Mr. Big is and walk out and say like, yeah, the boss says kill him.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I didn't really need to see him, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we just get him to come out and goes, "This stupid mother told you uptown."
I mean, the book's very different anyway.
Yeah.
The book's completely different.
No anger in the book.
No, this is probably one of the occasions where the book and the film were just wildly torn apart.
Mr. Big is the villain in the book, is that right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I really wouldn't recommend the book because it's dated worse than any other.
Yeah, sort of read that now, and I mean, some of the Fleming books, they are very sexist, racist, and misogynist, and this is the worst, just the most cringeworthy.
It's full of Fleming's observations on the black man.
No, this is it. So, but it's very much of their time, and you have to kind of read them as such. So
I would think they were racist at the time.
they probably were.
I cannot imagine that's the way that the whole of literature was.
No, it's abhorrent now, really, isn't it, to think about it? But
so yeah, the
sort of
book
read
is
it and cringe.
Certainly, Kananga's an invention of the film. The name comes from the guy who owned the crocodile farm we see later.
Didn't he was he like stunt coordinator or something as
Yes,
well?
he did that run across.
Oh, that's the one.
That's Ross Kananga who owns that farm.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And trespassers will be eaten is actually a real sign.
Oh wow! Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I guess actually watching it, because I've watched it again this evening, this film is actually fairly slight. You think of it as quite plotty because it starts off with like 3 seemingly unconnected attacks in different parts of that continent, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll get to it the second time we see Mr. Big stroke Kananga, and there's a lot of padding around the film, actually. This film has to be padded out to its 2-hour running time.
Yeah, it's not particularly plot heavy, is it?
Actually, all the intrigue is sort of up until we find out who Mr. Big is, and then there's not actually much actual plot after that.
It's very much more like Bond being chased, and then Bond goes and gets Kananga, basically.
Yeah, the boat chase takes up the bulk of it.
So he gets taken out into the alleyway to be killed.
Oh yeah.
Miss Solitaire.
Yeah.
She's a Solitaire as well.
Yeah.
Solitaire.
Solitaire's there reading the cards. So, sort of the card reads that he's a fool, and then
You found yourself.
Yeah, and then he's sort of like, oh, what about my future? We'll pick a card, and and of course it's the lover's card, I think, which triggers his idea.
Us.
Yeah, us.
I can see how sleazy you're going to end up seeming to me.
She looks genuinely scared by that, her expression.
We're used to age gaps, and people with age gaps in real life, that's your own business. But the fact is, for most of the filming of this, Jane Seymour's 21, Roger Moore is 45, and because they play her as a virginal type, well, literally a virgin, they play on her naivety, and I'm not sure that's the best way to go against a first-time Bond who's 45.
He looks good
If
though.
it'd be Connery
Considering he's
in
45, he looks
Russia
good.
with Love era, then maybe. So it just ends up looking a bit creepy, and as a result, she ends up reminding me pretty much of Domino. And I think I said that when we did the Thunderball review. She's just kind of very beautiful, a little bit bland, not much of an actress, and just a kept woman.
No, she's like very innocent as well. Like when he does play the lover's card, as it were, you can see the terror on her face, thinking, "Oh no," you know.
She is pretty much played as a damsel more than anything. The only thing she's got is the fact that she's a psychic.
But once she loses that ability, she's got nothing.
Yeah.
No, that's like, yeah, she's useless, poor lady.
But then she's in a world that's like that. I mean, doesn't like Kananga say to her like only when I choose you to lose that power, I will take it away myself. Meaning like, yeah, well, naturally, I'm the one that's gonna fuck you, which is kind of a bit
basically, I'll
weird.
take away your virginity.
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah, so that's creepy enough.
I think she actually probably suits the role as written.
Yeah,
but like I say, as much as he's far from looking too old in this film at all, but we've got a first-time Bond in his mid-40s, and they've put the youngest Bond girl since Tatiana up against him, literally and figuratively, and I'm not sure that was the wisest decision.
Yeah,
no,
it was the 70s, I suppose.
I mean, there's a big age gap, probably even a bigger age gap when we get to For Your Eyes Only, not with Peebe, with Melina. But Melina plays a little bit.
It gets worse. I mean, like, look, A View to a Kill is pretty bad.
Stacey Sutton's 30 though.
Yeah, but isn't that
Roger looks older by that point?
Yeah,
but Roberts, Stacey Sutton.
Yeah, but isn't like more makes a comment like, actually, I am older than your mum.
Oh, definitely.
So like she's kind of like, yeah.
But I must say in this film, even though he's kind of like mid-40s, Roger does look good though, I think.
Yes, he does.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk
about
it. Before we go any further with the film, we really ought to talk about the casting of Roger Moore. Did you watch some of the extras for this, Becca?
No. Sorry.
Oh, it's just me then.
Yes.
No,
well, it is your job.
No, sorry about that.
It's unpaid. It's an unpaid. It's like an internship. Sorry. We talked earlier on in the series about how Roger Moore was in line for when when Dr. No was being cast, and we know that Harry Saltzman knew him, and we know that Harry Saltzman was always keen on him, but it turns out, and Roger Moore told me this himself a couple of weeks ago. No, he didn't. He told me and 400 of my closest friends that he was never spoken to about Dr. No at all. Oh. So whatever rumours, he said, I don't know what was in people's heads, but no one spoke to me or my agent. He was spoken to around the time that Sean Connery was quitting, and they were originally talking about doing The Man with the Golden Gun after. Let me think. After. Now, hang on. Was it in '67 he was spoken to? I think it would have been when Sean quit. I think it would have been after You Only Live Twice.
Yeah.
And they were going to film it in Cambodia. But Cambodia was as
quite dangerous.
Politically unstable, as it would remain for a very long time afterwards. And the whole idea got canned and all the rest of it. Why they didn't say, okay, well, we're now doing Majesties, we'll have you do that, I've no idea. But he said he was spoken to about doing The Man with the Golden Gun in Cambodia. It never happened. When we get to the end of Sean Connery's run, a second go at the role, there's talk again about who's going to play Bond. Connery says no. And there's a lot of talk of different people, and they offered the role to Clint Eastwood.
That would have been amazing.
No, it wouldn't. I thought of it tonight when I was watching one of the later scenes in the film where he was carrying that massive gun. And I'm thinking, that's a dirty Harry gun.
It is pretty much, isn't it?
They screen tested and talked to a lot of different people. Clint Eastwood turned them down, clearly.
Adam West.
Adam West was before this. Adam West was around the time of Majesties.
Oh, good on Batman.
Their sort of backup option was Michael Billington. And we see Michael Billington in the opening sequence of The Spy Who Loved Me as Triple X's lover.
Yeah, he's got a kind of very Bondish appearance,
There was
doesn't he?
talk of Burt Reynolds. There was talk of
Oh, God.
all sorts. But Harry Saltzman particularly was the person who rang Roger Moore and offered him the role. And thereafter, and he does tell this story in his live show, that Harry Saltzman kept ringing him up and saying, Cubby said you need to lose a bit of weight. Cubby says you need to...
Oh, yeah, you had to kind of lose weight and
wasn't
get a haircut. And
his choice, I don't think. I'm not saying Cubby Broccoli didn't like him or want him. And it's clear that he had the closer relationship with Cubby over time.
Sure.
But Harry Saltzman's choice was very much Roger Moore. But he'd been on their minds, we can say with certainty, since 1967. But he was heavily dieted to get into this role.
Not that he was obese or anything like that, but
No.
I think it just wanted to turn up and get into shape, I guess.
I mean, he's pretty trim here.
He very much is.
Yeah, you can tell.
He's very good in this role. I've noticed with a few of the Roger films I've seen lately, they put him in quite a lot of black, and it suits him.
It's quite slimming, isn't it? Not that he needs it, but it is quite
Suits him
quite
somehow.
slimming.
He wore a lot of it in Moonraker. He wears quite a bit of it in this, and it does suit him.
It's very suave.
Very.
Yeah, no, I've got doubts about them casting forget what I think of Roger Moore generally, but I'm a bit casting someone for their first go round in a film that will be released in the year you turn 46. I'm not sure of the wisdom of that, but he's not a problem in this film at all.
No, I mean,
No, age certainly isn't an issue.
yeah, that he still looks kind of fresh. He still looks physically fit, and and I think this is one of his best performances anyway as Bond. I've always felt that. We will get to what a performance I prefer in For Your Eyes Only, but for me this still retains a bit more of the hardness to him, as well as the nudge wink wink that that Moore is more known for.
Where I have a problem, Chris, is actually not with this film. It's more that we cannot switch off the fact we know the films that follow it.
Yeah.
So when he
Yeah,
says
that's true.
Solitaire, us, and I think you sleazy fucker, and the whole thing with throwing the card.
Well,
that's
that itself.
me superimposing Roger Moore sort of Moonraker and Beyond onto
Yeah.
it. I'm not sure that I'm still that comfortable with these scenes, but I wouldn't necessarily call him sleazy.
I
I think for that moment is quite a Bond thing to do. It's when he says "Oh, the two of us." I get why you make that assumption, because you would think he was expecting the death card or something like that, but instead he sort of picks out lovers, and you would assume "Oh, so is this going to be us?" kind of thing.
It's much more of a come on.
Well, it's what else? Who else would it be? And you can see the look on Solitaire's face that she actually kind of senses it. It's she's worried, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
She turns it over while he's on the way, because he says, when he's she turns over the lover card.
yeah, and
Says it's death, and she's like, it's death. So she does know.
Yeah, she knows that Bond's going to be the one. It's not going to be Kananga.
And initially, I always thought it was because Roger Moore's Bond's obsessed with sex. Then I realized. Then I actually thought for a period of time, it's to remove that power, so she's no help to Kananga. But then he doesn't know that sex would remove that. So
Yeah, how is he to know?
I think it's more the old-fashioned shagger to get her on side, a bit like with Pussy Galore.
yeah.
Pump her for information, to use a quote from a much later Bond movie.
But yeah, I do like his follow-up when he's getting dragged away. Now you'll just stay right here. I'll be right back.
I'll be right back in a few minutes.
But yeah, so he basically gets thrown outside. Why did they just don't shoot him there and then? I don't know. But he gets thrown outside to a wasteland alleyway. It's just derelict buildings, and he beats up the two guys. Basically, that's what happens.
Really easily.
Yeah, I mean there are little hints. I do like the moment where he sees the metal frame, and he kind of goes for it, and they tell him, hands up. Okay, that didn't work. And then so he's he's a Bond that is still kind of looking for his way out. He's still thinking. He's like, right, okay, how do I get out of this? What can I use? He's not.
You can see his mind working all the time, and he's very much the practical kind of hands-on, obviously, as he is. But
the unflappability at this stage actually works quite well. We'll get to it into some scenes later on.
Yeah, that's a good word. He's obviously very cool in a crisis.
I don't think Bond suits New York particularly. I don't think he suits America very well, actually. But he really doesn't.
He doesn't, but I kind of like the contrast.
Roger Moore's James Bond, who's like always immaculate, and I don't know.
He's always well dressed. His hair's nicely coiffured and not as rough and ready, perhaps.
Yeah, I always remember Grace Jones said he had the stiffest hair she'd ever seen.
Oh, there's a quote. Jeez.
Yeah.
He had the what?
Stiffest hair she'd ever seen.
Well, that hairspray.
And coming from her.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. That's saying something.
Quite severe hairdo.
Yeah, but I don't like Grace Jones anyway, so she can. Yeah, I'm on Team Roger with that one.
We'll talk about her near at the time.
Yeah.
She's like an Amazon woman.
So he escapes from that, and
Picked up by Harold Strutter, CIA.
yeah. So Felix is looking out for him too.
Yeah.
And where does he go from there?
I generally can't. I think he goes back to Felix, doesn't he? Basically.
He's sent to San Monique, isn't he?
Yes, that's right.
Goes to San Monique because he's aware there's something going on there.
Yeah,
and when he gets to the checkout, he's at Tesco. When he gets to reception, somebody there.
Yeah,
Mrs. Bond.
I mean, I will mention this is the first time we actually see Baron Samedi because he's there performing.
Yeah.
Performing basically means moving around a bit and laughing.
Yeah.
I don't know who's paid to see that.
Yeah.
Because
No.
I could happily walk on stage.
Yeah,
like
and doing that thing with your jowls when you shake your face. Yeah.
That would go well with motorboating. We can include that in the act as well.
That's something for you guys to do. It's okay.
Yeah, but it's just a bit. I think it was just established that he's in a film because he isn't actually in it that much.
He's not really. He's more symbolic than anything else.
Yeah, he's just kind of, at times he just kind of randomly hangs around.
Playing on people's superstitions, it's to frighten people away from those poppy fields.
Yeah,
That's what it is. But whenever you see him and he's out of his Baron Somebody costume, as it were. He's wearing like really flamboyant, sort of big top hats and carrying a cane, and he did a lot of the dance choreography for that scene as well, but also all the fight choreography as well for the rest of the film, I think, as far as I know. I have to verify that, Dave.
but yeah,
that's my research anyway.
We are getting to the first bit of the film. We're getting to a part of the film I like, followed immediately by a trope more of the Roger Moore era than any other, although you could say it about all eras of Bond ladies to some degree. I quite like the unflappability. When he gets into his suite, he's shaving. There's a snake.
Did anyone else think of Dr. No about that?
Sorry?
Did anyone else think Dr. No?
Definitely, and I think it is kind of trying to introduce him in a similar way. But there are differences. I mean, we'll get to him. He smokes cigars for a start.
Yeah.
That's a massive cigar as well.
He doesn't ask for a martini. But there's an unflappability to him when he sort of turns around and kills that snake. It's not that he never shows fear, but he looks pretty relaxed afterwards.
Yeah, he's just there putting on the shave on.
An agent, he calms down pretty quickly.
He does.
But then we're introduced to Rosie Carver, and one of my biggest problems with the Roger Moore era is, even by the standards of Bond girls, he had to act, particularly in his 70s films more than his 80s, he acted with a lot of characters written as complete dummies. And in both,
it's not very well written.
Well, with both this film and the next film, they're
Oh
agents.
God,
as well.
yeah, and they're just,
they're agents,
and they're
She's supposed
useless.
to be
They are
CIA.
generally useless.
I think Rosie Carver must be the worst CIA agent going, even though she's not a real CIA agent.
Well, the worst bit was, we'll get back to this scene in a minute, but later on, when she points the gun at somebody and she doesn't even take the safety off.
Yeah, I mean, they do write it as a rookie, this is my second mission. The first one was the guy who died. Oh well, that.
Yeah, that's like it's like her cover story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, she's obviously
But
not
she's
real
a
CIA,
CIA double agent.
Mm.
So she's basically working for Kananga, but she's supposed to be an agent. And are they supposed to be all fantastic and flawless? No. but she's terrified, incredibly naive.
Of
There's
everything. It's like, at the sight of a dead snake, she screams. It's like, oh, I should warn you, you never go in there without mongoose. Like, But yeah, it's that, and of course Moore tries it on instantly, and she's like, oh no, Felix told me about this. That's why I got 2 sweets. It's like, oh, okay then. Well, she's reserving herself. Oh no, there's like a voodoo hat in her room. Now she's terrified. Now she's literally
inadvertently slightly racist, because it's implying anyone of that race would fall for all the same stuff.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be a somewhat experienced CIA agent. I mean, even if their experience is only a basic training. People don't just walk into the CIA, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give the film a hard time, because I don't think it's meaning to be racist. I think it's inadvertent, but it's awkward, and I'm not that comfortable with it.
No, there's that sort of tone running through this film.
Quarrel's boat the next morning, she is just absolutely flat out incompetent in every way.
Worst CIA agent ever.
She is pretty dumb. I mean, like, there is a line, I'm sure Dave loved this, but like, she acknowledges that, oh, I'm just completely useless to you, and I'm more.
He's like, don't worry, darling.
It's like, well, don't worry, I'm sure I'll lick you into shape or something. Or like, sure I'll find you some use for you. And they kind of like raised eyebrows, like, oh god.
Here we go.
Yeah. But yeah, it's basically we meet Quarrel Jr., Quarrelsome from Dr. No, which is kind of like a nod to that, I suppose.
It's not so much a nod to that as the fact that in the book sequence, Live and Let Die is the second book. Dr. No's, I think, 6th.
Yeah.
I said 5th in the intro episode, but I miscount, and I tend to leave out Diamonds Are Forever, maybe because the film scarred me, I don't know.
Scarred for life.
Quarrel is in that book before going on to being killed in Dr. No. Because Dr. No came first, they've already killed the character off.
Yeah.
And yet they've suddenly got this, I don't know if it's to link it to being the same Bond, same but different, or because they thought it's Live and Let Die and Quarrel's in it. Well, they've kept very little else from the book, so I don't see the point. But it's over briefly. Physically, he does have a resemblance in build and sort of facial features to the original.
Yeah, you do believe that, this could be his son.
I'd say so. There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
But it's a throwaway scene, really. He's just somebody.
Yeah.
Bombed out.
Yeah, he uses a boat, and like, and Rosie thinks she finds out something. She finds like, there's like a radio and a gun, so she's like, he's actually working for Kananga, which doesn't make any sense because
she'd know.
Yeah, and okay, well, if she does don't generally think that, well, wouldn't she just let him do the job anyway? Because
she wouldn't necessarily know everyone who worked for Kananga.
Yeah.
But if she got on a boat with one of Kalanga's acolytes or double agents, he'd probably find a way to let her know, particularly given she's fucking armed.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so she makes a fool out of herself in that regards, and then they decide to go on a picnic to try and find out where.
Worst picnic ever.
Yeah.
He's like, darling, I thought you said Baines was called Up in the Mountains. Oh yeah,
and
Up in the Mountains down there.
For her to get her gums around his plums.
Yeah. And also
that's part of a picnic.
And also I might add that this also on the way there we get cutscenes of Kananga like listening on his radio, getting updates, and he's like, "This, it's a funny performance." I mean, should we talk about Kananga? Yes, sure. As a villain, what do we think as him as a villain? Because I find him very uneven, to say the least.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a dichotomy, really. I think in the first part of the film, personally, I do find him quite menacing. But then later on in the film, when, as we were sort of saying, infiltrates his lair, he turns into kind of like mustache twirling panto villain almost. And I don't like his demise at all. It is just so bad.
Yeah, it is pretty cartoony.
But like the less we see him, I think the more effective he is. But that's no reflection on the performance at all. Because I've in other films, but I just think for this film, the less we see him, the more effective he is.
Like, I generally thought like when he's the majority of his scenes, he kind of just acts like he's just in a mood, like he's just like dead grumpy and like like where's Bond now? Oh good, like we'll find him. It's like literally I must have spent a day of like him sat in like this office, like right, say that line, and press that button, say that line, and press that button.
For me, I'm kind of ranking as we go. because we know we're going to do a villains episode, but what I've actually got is like my previous ranking, if you like, or a ranking at the outset, and I'm actually adjusting it as I go. And Kananga is probably going to be like the biggest drop, because in my head, I think it's the fact that Bond is taken through a city that's on his side, effectively, or a big portion of a city. So he's very well protected. They wisely keep Teehee quite near him most of the time, and Teehee's physically imposing and a bit scary. Baron Samedi is, what's the word? I guess he's mysterious enough that you wonder what sort of thing Kananga's into. He's effectively got a very young girl hostage. You know, she might not know any different. And also the bit where he's big and reveals himself as Kananga, and they're on about cutting his finger off and all the rest of it. I find all of that kind of quite unsettling. So if you show me 3 minutes of every Bond villain, and their best 3 minutes, Kananga's would be quite high up. But I'm watching it again tonight. He's in it a lot less than I thought he was. And like you say, for most of the film, he's just basically a bit moody. And he meets a rather shitty demise. So he's not as good as I thought he was.
Quite memorable, though, isn't it, this death?
Yeah, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think when he I do enjoy him when he starts to kind of ham it up a little bit. So like he has two moments where he does this. One where he reveals that he is Mr. Big and he takes the makeup off and he's like explaining his plan to Bond. And the other time is actually at the end where Bond goes to his lair and he captures Bond and Solitaire, and he's kind of like, "Oh, come in, Bond. Like, let's have some champagne." Oh, I believe
anti-villain.
Yeah, I believe Poppy was. Oh well, they're quite resilient. You just delayed it somewhat. Minor inconvenience. Kind of just blowing it off almost. He's kind of smiling, kind of like in a kind of cocky self way. But he has a dark moment with Solitaire where, does he have two?
That scene where they're in the back of the Filet Soul and he's kind of threatening, like he's got Mr. Like his pinky finger. You kind of feel there's a real sense of threat there, but otherwise not really.
Yeah, I mean, like he just switched from that charm to but the question still stands.
Did you mess with that?
Yeah, yeah, and he's like quite sort of, he's angry toward Solitaire in the kind of like domestic violence kind of way. It's kind of like, oh fucking hell.
It doesn't fall into the cliche generally of guest friendship, if you like. In that it's almost a bit sort of epic form in that regard. In that quite often Bond will be opposite his mortal enemy, or the person that will kill him or he will kill, one way or the other.
Yeah.
And they're chatting over a nice drink or some food or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's done very well. Sometimes it comes off very lame. But the villain he most reminded me of was Fran Sanchez, because they tried to make him at least somewhat real world. And also, there's none of that. I mean, and the only time Sanchez was friendly to Bond was when Bond had actually convinced him he wasn't quite what he thought he was. Kananga, from the moment he sat down at the end of a table opposite him, wants his throat. It's as simple as that. And I quite like that. But all I'm saying is his overall effect on the film is a lot less than I thought it was going to be, and it's a bit more uneven than I remember. So he's actually been probably the biggest letdown of this watching.
It feels like he's been given, like he's just been directed differently in each scene. In one set of scenes he's like, right, told to this, and then when in a certain aspect, like, you need to be dark and menacing, and then in the other part you need to be kind of charming as a Bond villain.
It's like disjointed, isn't it? Really
yeah. I mean, like, I think I mentioned to you guys, it's almost like towards the end of filming, he's suddenly like, actually no, I'm going to enjoy myself a bit more. so he just kind of like just like kind of smiles and charms.
And you do wonder what order this was all shot in.
Yeah. So, But
Yeah, very often they don't shoot it in sequence that you see in the film, is it? So you kind of think, well, okay, in the scene you act happy, in the scene,
yeah.
Yeah.
But it is very uneven, but I will admit he is memorable.
Yeah, it's one of the more
I'd say
memorable
that,
villains, I think.
definitely.
And because he's quite young, especially at the time, he's actually quite young for a Bond villain. He's got a little bit of like he always looks like similar age to Bond himself, and he's
Well, Yaphet Kotto's still alive and well now, so he might even have been
he still
younger
goes
than
strong.
Roger Moore.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what he's best known. I guess he would be best known for Alien.
Yeah.
But it was a good time to talk about Kananga actually, because as I say, they're about to get to the truth of he's about to get to Solitaire's place and
Poppy Fields.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so Rosie Carver, she ends up Bond susses her out and then points her and basically makes her it gives what of something that Bond would do, which basically like, oh no, they'll kill me if I tell you, and he just pulls a gun and says, well, I'll kill you if you don't. And the thing I get from Bond as a character, that Bond is someone who would generally fucking do that. He would not give a shit. If he finds out you're a traitor, he will just shoot you. He have no qualms of doing that. Even if you're someone he's just slept with, he will just do it.
That's why I come back to the Rogers performance. You still get the sense that he is quite deadly like that.
Yeah, he's like, well, I'll kill you if you don't. Speak now.
Well, at this point, Roger Moore sells me he's an agent at the peak of his powers.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is all pretty relative to the Bond series as a whole. This is relatively believable.
Sure.
But yeah, Rosie is being watched all the time, and of course she's about to give up what she does know, and she's basically shot by remote control.
Death by Scarecrow.
Yeah, which is like, it's pretty convenient placing for all these scarecrows. but also, why didn't one of them shoot Bond? I just don't know.
Exactly. And he's chasing after her. You think, well, you're on your land now.
Another missed opportunity.
It's not like you're shooting him in a bar in Harlem anymore. You're shooting him in some island on an estate. He could just be never seen again.
Doing for trespassing.
But he doesn't. They shoot Rosie, and he basically immediately goes straight for Solitaire, which is why he's there anyway.
Yeah. So he sneaks into the compound with a set of deck of cards with all the same thing on them. So what do we think of this scene? Is it pretty creepy, do you think, or is it
I don't like it. I don't like it. Over the years, I've come to sort of realise why it's there, and you can make a case for it. But again, I can't forget 50-something sleazy Roger, and she's 21, and I don't like this at all.
No, it just feels very uncomfortable to me. Like, oh.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I guess like the feel and doing a da 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 and the soundtrack just kind of like, I don't know. But it is what it is. I suppose it's just we've got it. It got to get to it. Solitaire's got to sleep with him, and she got to lose her powers, and then it drives the story along.
It's tonally all over the place as well, because when they wake up the next day or they're laying in bed in the morning, she's full of like regret and sadness, and she looks genuinely like she's just made a massive mistake. And he gets out of bed and starts putting his shirt on, and she's like, basically, can we have another go? And it's like, make your fucking mind up. Are you ashamed, embarrassed, upset, delighted? And it's just no thoughts really gone into the Solitaire character beyond.
Well, once you've done it, you might as well just get your money's worth.
God.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. That's fine if it wasn't for 2 seconds earlier looking desolate over it. And like her life is ruined and she's going to be killed.
Yeah,
but anyway,
it's Roger Moore. He's a charming guy.
Yes, we've now got an escape involving a bus.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, the only thing that I noticed about this is Roger Moore did a lot of the driving for it. And I'm just saying, because he's a Bond that ended up doing, he could do his own breathing in the later films, and that was about it.
Did his own stunts.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of like you see something happen and it's still him is a real surprise. I'm sure he didn't drive. I'm sure he didn't drive under that bridge. but he did a lot of the bus driving for this.
Yeah, again, it feels very like swinging 60s, like the idea of like Bond escape on a bus.
Got Cliff Richard in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
literally, old Route Master bus.
But yeah, this is like Bond escaping with Solitaire from the island. He gets chased down by the island's own police.
But the plot's very thin from now on, because apart from the reveal of Mr. Big, which we haven't had yet, and the final slow dipping mechanism that comes from this film, there isn't a lot more story to tell. So you've got an escape sequence now where it ends up him sort of destroying a bus, and then they fly back to New Orleans, or is it Manhattan? Yeah, they fly back to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And then you get this jokey comedy sequence, which is like late era Roger Moore, where he's giving an old lady a flying lesson
Oh, that's brilliant. I like that scene.
to escape Kanangas. It's all right, but
It's very
just,
cheesy, but yeah.
It's just.
I mean, we get to meet the cab driver again, which is like, "Hey, Jim."
Hello, Jim.
Oh, he
That's
goes,
a bad outfit. Oh no, wrong film.
you, you go and skydiving, you see.
It's a lucky day, Jim.
Yeah, it's they basically take Solitaire, but Bond manages to escape, and he has to have a chase beaver like on a plane grounded.
Let's swing it today, shall we, Mrs. Bell?
Yeah, but I just like the idea how he escaped from while at the same time still parking up at the same spot that he did.
Yeah.
And the driver's still there on the phone going, I don't know where she. What? It's very. I mean, it's a tease to what is to happen later on.
Yeah, we are getting early signs of where this series will go,
An epic boat chase.
and it's okay for a 2 or 3 minute sequence. But
Yeah.
it
And
won't-
I love how.
But it's Tom but it's not Roger Moore. This is Tom Mankiewicz. I think this sequence. I think it's got
Definitely.
more to do with the fact that he's writing it than anything to do with tailoring it for Roger Moore.
No, it's very much putting a stamp on that screenplay, isn't he? So
Could you see Connery do this?
No.
maybe
No.
in Diamonds, that kind of style, but
No,
otherwise,
but
no.
I think it's more the point we didn't see him do it.
No,
Do you know what I
exactly.
mean? Had he signed for this film, would this sequence have been there for him to do? I don't know.
No, that's it. But yeah, it's quite silly, isn't it?
I guess this all feels like padding to me. The overall film runs fairly nicely, but we're into a whole series where the plot's almost finished. There's not a lot more story to tell. We get the reveal of Mr. Big next, because they are eventually sort of captured and all the rest of it. But I mean, after that, it's just a run of action until credits.
It is. I mean, like basically Bond escapes. He meets up with Felix. Felix has to deal with the driving instructor. Like, they get through to like an FBI agent over
They
it.
said something about it
Blue
being in
lights back
intensive
on.
care. That
Yeah.
woman's had a heart attack or something.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like,
she looks quite poorly by
you
the
know,
end of it. bless
babe,
her.
I'll be honest. I reckon she's milking it. She's just pissed off. She's like, right, I want to sue everyone. And
She spent all that money for that flying lesson. She has wasted.
yeah, she strikes me some with a stick up her ass. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. And then him and Felix go to Fillet Sol, where they're going to meet the FBI friend who gets killed in the same manner as the agent did.
That's it.
And then
It's another revolving booth.
yeah, well, no, this time, Bond goes, oh no, well, I'm not going to let's sit by the stage.
Oh yeah, so it goes down, doesn't it? It doesn't revolve,
Yeah.
it goes down. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
The lady that sings to him in the club was hired to sing the theme tune. Because it didn't occur to them when they hired Paul McCartney to write the song that he may want to sing it. So they hired her to sing it, and Paul's like,
Oh.
oh, no, I'm going to sing it.
Yeah, that's interesting though,
So they
isn't it?
gave her a slot to sort of do this scene. But this could have been the version we got over the credits.
No, it's a funky scene. It's a funky song though.
So who is she? Is she like a known artist, or has basically Paul McCartney stolen her chance of stardom?
Seems like it, yeah.
Is it BJ Arno? Is her name?
Hmm?
What's I can't remember her name. Was it BJ Arno? I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. That's very professional.
Yeah, we don't really care. It was just a little anecdote.
Okay, moving on.
She's a fucking nobody thanks to Paul McCartney, you fucking bastard.
You said it, not me.
But yeah, she would have done a good job. I kind of liked her rendition at the club. Anyway, yeah. So basically, Bond gets like sort of lowered down to see Mr. Big yet again, and
And this scene does feel like a reprise. It just feels like exactly the same scene.
Yeah, we've been here before.
I mean, if you showed me a screenshot from one, it would take me a moment to realise which one I was watching.
Yeah, it's changeable, really.
But yeah, so James Bond is basically saying, I will only tell Kananga what I did with her.
Yeah.
He's like, right.
Right, I'm going to rip my face off and then you'll tell me.
Quite revealing.
It goes like...
I love these lines in this film. I know Tom Mankiewicz has the cheesy scripts, but I do think he has some brilliant lines.
What I love Roger's like response where he goes like, "I'll only tell Kananga," so like, okay, fine. Kananga reveals himself. Now the question still stands, like, well, the gentleman never tells. It's like,
it's like Connery, as we discovered on the Goldfinger commentary. I fucked her.
Yeah, literally.
And Becca really fucking laughed at that. It was brilliant.
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's an okay scene. He's kind of fairly... I don't understand why they didn't torture him, to be quite honest with you.
No, but I suppose, threatening to cut off his hands and whatever, you just think, oh dear.
Start with Pinky, then like move to more
vital areas.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see like Tiki as well. What do you reckon to him as a henchman then with his metal arm?
I think he's kind of underserved.
Very much of him, do you?
I don't think they give it. I mean, like the only real scene he gets is this, and then like his only real scene of being a villain is the alligator bit where he's like, taunting Bond, and then it gets a reprise at the end.
Yeah, and that train sequence is very short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see much of him.
I mean, to be fair, I'm going to spend the second half of this film complaining the action sequences are too long and too baggy, so I mustn't complain about that. But yeah, for Teehee himself, we don't get an awful lot of him. But we do go to the crocodile farm next, which was inspired by Ross Kananga.
Mm-hmm.
So again, rather than shoot Bond, they decide to take him to a crocodile farm basically.
I'm glad that's the only type of farm they own, because when he says take him to the farm, cuts to the next scene and he's bottle feeding a lamb.
Take him to the petting zoo.
Yeah.
But basically, like we'll skip the part where Kananga reveals his plan of essentially
world domination.
Giving,
well, not really.
Well, basically, this is like the first time that Bond is up against a drug dealer.
Yeah, definitely.
And his goal is, right, well, I'm creating a specific product of heroin, and I'm actually going to just give it out to the public for free. That will just like make me number one, and then drive everyone out of.
Plus, I'll get more people hooked.
Yeah, and then I will basically be one of the basically have like one of the biggest products, like and it would be illegal.
There's no competition. He can charge whatever he wants them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he said the only people that would have a monopoly would be him and the phone company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is quite ambitious.
It's quite a hard-hitting storyline, isn't it, in terms of going up against a drug dealer? Because I don't think we see that again until Sanchez, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't think of another one.
No.
But it must be a particularly like brand. Like it must have like it's got to be that one.
Well, he's very keen on protecting that field, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that particular strain of poppy.
I say that field, it's probably a big estate rather than a field, but yeah.
Sure, yeah. On a whole island.
But, I mean, like I say, my only problems with this film are in certain details, and certain pacing things. Not that I think the film runs too long at all, but I think how it gets to that running time's a problem. But the general sort of tenets of the story, I think, are pretty solid. And again, they're trying something. I wouldn't say different. I said it in the Majesty's review that they've kind of stopped innovating, really. But at least they've put a bit of a fresh spin on things. This, if you saw this film, and you thought you were going to get a run of Roger Moore films, I think you'd be kind of quite positive about that after this.
Yeah, it's totally different to the others, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah, I'd say so. So yeah, I mean, we're quite happy here, but once again, I mean, it gets worse as the series goes on. But this crocodile farm sequence, the Foley work's awesome because you can hear the slight movements of jaw.
Oh
Yeah, you can hear when they sort of go crunch and.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
you kind of have this little like
yeah,
gargle.
it's kind of unsettling. They sound hungry, if that makes any sense at all.
They do. There's a scene like when he's kind of left on the island, isn't he? And they're all kind of creeping up out of the water.
Yeah.
And you hear that sort of noise.
But
And you
I'm
can hear
not sure to this day how much I like the running across the backs of crocodiles.
No.
It does strike me a little bit as, and again at this stage he's relatively young and fit, but it does strike me as the action sequence you write for a non-action sequence guy.
Yeah, he does it quite easily, doesn't he? Kids, don't try this at home. Also.
But I like the tease of the fact, he's going to get out, he's going to use the magnets to get the boat over. Oh, it's tied. Damn it.
Oh.
It won't work this time.
What a shame.
I did like that because at that point, if the projector had failed, and someone had said, "So what's it like then?" and if they'd started talking about gadgets, you go, "Well, he was only given one gadget, and it bloody failed."
We'll see it later on, don't you? 'Cause
Yeah,
he's
we
got the
do
little
see it
revolving
later on, but at this
buzzsaw.
point, it's actually a bit of a fake out. He's been given one gadget,
You didn't see it.
and actually the attempt to use it goes wrong. I can't.
That's it. He has to kind
Yeah.
of, rely less on the gadgets and use more of his smarts and think, right, okay, how am I actually going to escape from this? And obviously hop on the back of across the crocodiles.
I loved Roger Moore's story that he wore crocodile leather shoes for a laugh. But they're really slippy underneath, so they had to put the stuntman in the same one. If you look at some of the bonus features and stuff, and I don't think it's this time, I think I've seen it years ago. This one take where a crocodile does catch his foot.
Oh
Yeah.
no!
He slips right at the end.
Yeah, I see that footage and I think, fucking hell, that must have killed, because it probably catches his leg and the leg goes up and it looks
so
really
dangerous.
It looks like it kind of twists as well. It's like, that's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, nothing life-threatening, but you can imagine, some sick leave after that, maybe.
Yeah, you need a bit of recuperation afterwards.
It's like he must have sprained that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you're a stuntman, you probably can't do much for a few days afterwards. But, the escape's okay, but on viewing this tonight, it leads into a sequence that I just think runs ludicrously too long. The whole boat sequence to this film.
Well, there's a reason why it runs too long, and that's because they decided to do Cannonball Run, like with it as well.
Very divisive part of the film. I wasn't actually we must talk about Sheriff Pepper, and we'll talk about him more next week because it's no spoiler to anyone listening.
No, he comes back.
He was popular with audiences out of this, and he comes back next.
He sure am, boy.
But I mean, before we even get to him as a character, and we must, I just think the whole sequence runs unbelievably long. Bond films are always somewhere near 2 hours. This film's like about 2 hours and one, something like that. And without running a few of these sequences too long, they could have got this. This could have been a 100-minute Bond film. This could easily have been the shortest Bond film. And I didn't really realise that until tonight.
Yeah, it could have done, but I do agree. I mean, like, I do feel it much like something that will happen in next week. They kind of do something daft that diminishes the action that's happening. I mean, like, as it stands, it's actually a pretty good boat chase, and Live and Let Die has always been praised for having a really, really good boat chase. But I feel it's kind of hampered because it decides to be Smoking the Bandit as well.
It's not. It's not as bad. I know what you're getting at.
But it keeps cutting
there is
away.
something very specific next week that we won't spoil if you haven't seen the film.
Yeah.
If you're watching along with us, there might be one or two of you that are, when you watch it in the week, you'll know instantly what it was we were alluding to.
Yeah, it's really
There's
obvious.
nothing in this week's that's as bad, but it's all padding for comedy. And there just seemed to be a spell through the 70s and early 80s where the sort of comedy redneck sheriff was a thing. And it's a thing in Superman 2, which is also Tom Mankiewicz, or at least in its original conception, it was Tom Mankiewicz. More on that when we cover Superman. But I don't find comedy fat guys with southern accents spitting and chewing tobacco constantly funny.
No, it's a stereotype that's been done to death, really, isn't
But
it?
Becca, you quite enjoy it.
I just think it's funny.
Yeah?
I mean, it's
I promise I won't make
very-
fun of you, though.
He's
very
Why-
racist
what-
and
seriously,
generally,
Rebecca,
you know,
without
oh, sorry,
making
no,
fun of you
carry
at
on.
all, what do you like about this? What is it that's funny? What am I missing?
No, I just think that the concept of him, because he is obviously comic relief, as it were, and it is incredibly racist. But I just think it's.
I think what
cracks me up.
Becca's has about this, and then in the same kind of way, I kind of feel it too. When you've grown up with these films, you kind of grown up with this scene, and you kind of have a fondness for it, even though, if you look at it objectively, it is a bit naff and a bit racist,
very naff, very racist.
and a bit dumb. But you kind of grow up with it as a kid, so you kind of have like a fond memory of it. So
Yeah, definitely.
Even on that level, you still kind of go,
Yeah.
okay, well.
Yeah.
But if I looking at this now objectively, this really like breaks up what would be like a tense speedboat chase, but it kind of isn't, because the focus seems to be more on this random sheriff they just like put in. It's like I'm watching a Bond movie. Why am I seeing like?
Why am I seeing him commandeering a vehicle, and why are we focusing on him sat in the back of it with a big smile with his tongue poking out?
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's like,
That's
what's
why I
that
don't
got
like
to do with the plot? We only met you 5 minutes ago.
Exactly. It's like when he appears in Golden Gun as well. That's to say, I must say, I don't sort of like him, but I have a fondness for him, as you said, Chris. But it's like I don't like him. Sorry, I like him less when it comes to the Man with Golden Gun, because he's even more racist and he's even more annoying.
I think again as well, we're trying to. What we can't do is switch off the rest of our lives' experience. And as much as
No.
I'm sat here tonight saying about Roger in this film, and Roger in Octopussy or A View to a Kill or Moonraker is seeping into the way I'm seeing things.
Yeah, they all
But
kind of blend together, don't they?
fortunately, I'm aware of that and I'm spotting it and I'm going, well, that's not too bad. But I think with this, like Chris says, Smokey and the Bandit, the Cannibal Run films,
Exploitation movies.
what's the other? No, I'm talking about this whole sheriff trope.
Oh yeah,
Superman 2,
definitely. Yeah, they all kind of seep into the same
the
one,
Dukes
don't
of Hazzard.
That's the one.
It
yeah.
was just a big thing for a period of time where you had to put a small town sheriff with a pot belly and a deep south accent who was just over officious but not very good at his job. And that was supposed to be hilarious. And I just think it's vaguely offensive in its
Yeah.
way.
It doesn't really suit this film, does it? It's literally just been
I know,
shoehorned
and
in
it just
because his character
again,
du jour.
I don't want to be too serious about it because it's only a bit of fun. But like, for a large part of the audience going in 1973, this is their like image of like Louisiana,
Yeah, it's
and it's
quite
just like
stereotypical.
once again, it's painting the South as a bunch of insular twats. I don't mind funny, I really don't, but this isn't that funny.
No, it just
But my
grates a little
biggest
bit, doesn't it?
problem with this scene is not Sheriff Pepper. It's just how long it runs.
yeah. It's like if it was just that one scene where he kind of captures that henchman, and then Bond kind of like sort of jumps over, and the henchman steals the car, and that was it. It
No
would have,
problem.
yeah, because it's just like this one
Would
thing.
be my
but,
favourite bit of the film, but no problem.
no,
Yeah,
but you
it
know,
makes
like,
it longer by Joe WB in there.
yeah, and maybe like a little sort of note with about him getting the speedboat to catch up with Bond. You know, oh Billy Bob's gonna get it. You know.
Oh god.
Oh, here comes Billy Bob! But I do
I'm sure
like.
there are people there who are called Billy Bob. I'm sure there are.
I do
but
it's
it's
like
just a
that
bit of a
gag.
cliche now.
I do like that gag though, where like they go, "Oh, well, here comes Billy Bob." And he starts looking, and like, and all the other guys have seen this black guy.
And he's like, that's not Billy Bob.
Yeah, it's just like I kind of like, really?
And they were wise to say nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear.
But doesn't he sort of see him later on? He goes, "Oh, that's not Billy Bob."
Yeah.
But
But,
yeah,
you know, hey,
but it does.
It's not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
When I think of this, when I think of The Man with the Golden Gun, again, for those of you who haven't seen it or haven't seen it for a long time, we'll spoil nothing, but we will say Sheriff Pepper turns up again. And when I think of that film, I can't help but think of him. When I think of this film, I don't often think of Sheriff Pepper. He's still a very small part of my overall view of this film.
No, it's more prominent in
my bigger
Golden
problem
Gun.
is it doesn't even have pacing problems as such, in as much as it's a 2-hour film, and it's not like it finishes and I go, well, that felt like 3 hours. It actually carries its running time very well.
Yeah,
but the way it unfolds the story,
you feel like it could have been a lot. It could have been a lot zippier. It could have been
it really could, because
snappier.
The main tenets of the story are all crammed into the first 2/3 of the film.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I mean, it's not a terrible sequence. And again, the number of times I was noting that's actually Roger Moore doing that bit, and he openly says he leaves it to the stuntmen. He's not a man of action, but at this point, he's pitching in, and I like that. And it's a much prettier film than last week as well. I mean, again, another thing that made Becca laugh, the punching people by wafting vaguely in their direction. Well, again, it's the same director this week, and I didn't really notice any of that. I didn't notice any examples of people speaking and their mouths didn't move, and all the sloppiness we had isn't there. And when I think of Live and Let Die, because it's a bit older than obviously his later films, I always think of it as a bit more washed out than it is. And when I watched it tonight, it's full of colour as well.
Yeah, it's
quite a handsome film.
Yeah, it's a colourful film, isn't it?
It's like a very colourful, poppy kind of film. It's very it's very zesty. It's like it's full of it's got. It does feel like Bond on Dance Remix, if that makes any sense.
No, I get it. And even the score is. I mean, it's not disco like it later becomes. I mean, disco hasn't been invented at this point. But what I mean is, it's not offensively of its era, or at least of its era to a degree that it will date beyond you being able to listen to it.
Yeah.
No.
But apart from the odd things earning the Batman kind of finish to the odd music, I think the score's excellent. And it was another thing that was excuse me. It was another thing that was them trying to distance themselves from what's come before. They've gone, well, we need a different sound for a new Bond. And
Definitely.
I just think this was quite wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think George Martin did a good job as a composer. I mean, did he do any other films, or was this like his only?
He didn't do any more Bond. No, I mean, I was just thinking that. I mean, if you said to me you can have him or John Barry to do a run of them, I'd choose John Barry. But
yeah,
Sure.
there's nothing wrong with changing it up now and again, and it will be released before the time this one is. But I mean, I've got to say on Chris's behalf, because Chris always apologises to us terribly. And there's absolutely no need. Chris at the moment is trying to work full-time and study full-time and appear on podcasts and everything else as well and edit ours. And it's a really difficult job. So by the time we get to this, you will have heard the music one, but it will have been a while before it came out. But obviously by the time you've heard this, you'll have been introduced by us, if you haven't already heard him, to Charlie Brigden. And Charlie, as I mentioned in that show and the show before, wrote an article about embracing change, and I've really taken it on board with the Bond series. I'm now past wanting John Barry every time, and I'm quite happy.
It's a nice change of mix. It's like having Mike Conti for
Bill Conti, for
Your Eyes Only.
Disco Stall.
And
a lot of people hate that score because it's very disco.
And License to Kill as well. It's just a nice change or something,
Yeah, it is.
There isn't a Roger Moore score I hate.
No, obviously I'm not a big fan of the disco score, but I think I'll listen to it again and I'll read Charlie's article and I think I'll listen to it with fresh ears, if that makes sense.
It's
I'm sure I'll have a renewed appreciation.
It's a lot of the Barry scores have a time. I mean, they're of their era, but they're timeless at the same time.
Sure.
If that makes any sense. And
yeah,
the
definitely.
score isn't that. But
no, that's very much rooted in the 80s.
But I would listen to it over Goldeneye every day of the week.
Oh dear, I'm sure there are aspects of the GoldenEye score that are.
There are. There's a couple of nice
Oh
bits.
yeah,
of Goldeneye score.
I think with the Bill Conti one, you wouldn't necessarily listen to it on its own, but in the context of a film, it works fine. It's like one of those things.
Maybe.
Like Sam Smith.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. But yeah, this action sequence just runs for such a long time. That's all.
Yeah.
It finishes
it
quite
does.
nicely. I mean, it's quite a brutal end to it, with him kind of setting him up, blowing him up.
Yeah, that's quite a big explosion.
I always like the end of it. Like, I really like the whole thing. He basically just throws gasoline at the guy and just rams him right in the end of a big tanker, and it explodes. I've
seen this film in a double-digit number of times, and I didn't remember that bit. And I think that's a testament to how long this scene runs. That I've started to zone out and do something else by then.
Yeah, sort of looking at your watch rather than focusing on the action.
But I
the sequence is too long, but it has a nice payoff.
Yeah. But I agree. It needs less pepper.
Yeah, it could do with the shortening by 5 minutes or so.
It could do with like less pepper, that scene, and
chop out DW
and focus on the actual speed show.
We understand, and we have to, and me particularly, because I'm the least fond of Roger Moore's Bond of the three of us. Certainly I, but all of us to some degree, have to make peace with the fact there are going to be a lot of sight gags and all the rest of it in it.
Yeah.
So Chris is right to that regard, that I think we can all make peace with the fact that we've got this silly Deep South sheriff for that little one sight gag where he tries to arrest someone and it goes wrong. But that arguably should have been it.
No, we have to sort of give it away, really, don't we? And
yeah, but then we wouldn't have like secret agent.
On whose side? That's what I love. It's just the way he speaks, and you've got the kind of. I'm not making fun of the accent, but it's just literally his intonations.
Now, JW, this guy's from England. He's a secret agent.
Not that secret, then.
No, clearly not. We'll take junction with our boys.
It's just. But when you're a kid, you just love that shit. I don't know. It's weird. But
hey, it's not a deal breaker. And even the way he gets away, because obviously in that initial exchange, Pepper accidentally discharges his weapon and hits Bond's engine, fuel line, whichever it is. Bond's boat starts to slow down. He's being chased by people that we've been left in a bit like Sanchez, we've been left in no doubt that they will hurt you or kill you. And whilst I do get annoyed with it's a bit of a comedy film bursting through somebody's wedding.
Yeah,
I do like the way he just gets himself off the river and is able to get someone else's boat. I kind of quite like that.
Yeah,
it's quite sweet.
Did anyone else not think about that poor wedding? Not only did it have it ruined, but they had two probably pissed off hitmen left
stranded in that lake.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just waiting for like a offbeat news report, sort of like a wedding massacre. But
again, I'm thinking of Superman 3, where the couple get like a holiday to Colombia, Bolivia, whatever it is, somewhere in South America, and that I don't know if you remember the sequence, but that whole thing with changing the weather. And they're down there in like misery, and I'm just thinking it's Tom Mankiewicz again. Having said that, Tom Mankiewicz probably had nothing to do with Superman 3.
Yeah, like
but it's just the tone that I ascribe to him.
Pushing the Leaning Tower of Pisa straight like that.
Yeah, that was Tom Mankiewicz actually thinking about it.
Yeah, that's the one. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I mean, but in general, what we've had so far, it's a decent sequence. It just runs too long.
Yeah,
in a nutshell.
And then basically we get to the climax of the film, basically, where where Bond, Felix, and Quorrell go to the island to save Solitaire and blow up the poppy fields.
And I have to say, and it will be a theme of mine, I think, because I said a few podcasts ago that I watched Moonraker and managed to quite enjoy it. And one of the things I said was, it's not just slimming, it's aging as well, in that they put Roger Moore's too old by the time of Moonraker, really, but they make him look the part, and they dress him in quite a lot of black, and they do this for this sequence here. And it basically, if you haven't seen it and you're listening to this podcast anyway, or you can't remember it, It's basically the outfit you see Daniel Craig in on the teaser Spectre poster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it is,
just
yeah,
him
like-
in black with the shoulder holster.
Yeah, a black
It's been a
polo
bit
neck.
modernised and slimmed down, but it's effectively the same outfit.
Yeah, that sort of turtleneck with the shoulder holster and all the rest
And
of
I
it.
have to say, he looks the business in it.
Yeah, it's
With
a
a-
good,
what
it's
I
a
should
good
call a
look.
turtleneck.
And I like the fact he's got a change of gun as well. I don't, it's not. I don't know what it is, but he's got a big,
Took me out of the
massive.
film slightly. I mean, I don't give a shit what gun he uses, but it was so Dirty Harry.
It is. It's probably
All I
like
could
his
think,
44
having done
Magnum,
a
you
bit
know.
of reading around this film, was, did they just think of Clint Eastwood when they wrote this?
Probably. I mean, but I don't know.
Wouldn't be
Maybe
surprised.
maybe they just thought like, oh, maybe you just give him like a different gun just to sort of jazz up a little bit, and it's just nice. I don't know. It's like the complete opposite to the Walther PPK. You know, it's
It's not a deal breaker, is
No.
it? It's fine.
No.
It's a gun.
but yeah,
Bit of trivia.
it's fine. But anyway, so he saves Solitaire from the snake guy. It's basically
Manages
what
to,
the basic.
Well,
It's
he's
like
about to save her, and then Baron Samedi makes an
Yeah.
appearance, sort of.
yeah,
That's very weird as well, isn't it? Because you see the top of his head blown off, and then
his eyes roll
not him.
back.
yeah, that's it. And you think, very
And I
strange.
suppose, I mean, somebody else said this on a podcast years ago about Bond, so this isn't original, but they said it doesn't have to make sense because he's an illusionist.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. Yeah,
And I thought, well, okay.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I agree.
okay, so he shoots the snake guy, saves Solitaire. Then the real Baron Samedi shows up, and then you think, oh, Bond and Samedi are gonna get in a fight, and then
That's about 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the easiest fight like I think Roger Moore has ever got himself into. Because
Yeah, and I know he's not been established as like a kung fu expert or something, but at the same time, Baron Samedi is quite a big, chunky guy.
Yeah, he's quite physically
It
imposing,
wouldn't
isn't
be
he?
beyond the. I mean, if that had been, well, obviously with a Daniel Craig film, but I think almost any other Bond, they'd have written a fist fight there
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
of some description. But it was a knife fight that lends to him punching him in the gut and then throwing him straight into that casket.
Of snakes, he's like, ugh.
Oh, yeah, bitten to death.
It's just like, oh, was that it? It's just.
Bit disappointing.
yeah.
But again, it's almost like bits of this film need shortening, bits of it need lengthening. They've wasted the runtime on some of the wrong things.
Mm.
But again, once again, it's not a deal breaker. This is the only bit of the film that looks a bit cheap. Just talking about budget for a minute, the budget's dropped again. Where's the series high? It's You Only Live Twice is the series high at $9.5 million.
Wow.
We're down to 7 million this week. 6 years later, we were at 7.2 for the last Connery. We were at 8 for the Lazenby film. We're at 7 million now, and by and large, it doesn't matter. I think they make it work fine, but
You wouldn't really know because there's quite a lot happening on screen anyway.
I think so.
Yeah, with the
I
locations
think
and the costumes
It
and-
looks pricier than Diamonds, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
this is the one sequence that looks really soundstagey. Every time you have this sort of snake bit in San Monique, it looks very Pinewood Studios to me.
Yeah, you could have someone on the back lot somewhere.
But yeah, that's not a deal breaker.
No.
But again, it's another thing. Funnily enough, we talk. I keep likening him to Sanchez, not in style, but in some of the ideas behind the villain.
He's a ladies' man. Almost.
Well, we're just talking about San Monique being fictional. Sanchez was the other example where we had that was Isthmus City.
Yeah, it's also not real.
But yeah.
However, that's important,
So
but-
he kills him off really, really easily, and he then runs onto. He seems to run onto the set of You Only Live Twice, albeit with a water feature built in.
Yeah, with the waterfall.
Well, it's just kind of it's kind of like a little hidden cave office place.
Mm.
But and he's Karamanga's Karamanga is it's because it's
Karamak.
Yeah, it's
Caramel.
yeah, it's because it's got Scaramanga coming up, so I kind of want to.
Cart door.
Yeah, car door.
Call it like a little tray man.
um,
Black magic. No. We'll
Yeah.
stop there.
Oh, Becca. You didn't realise what you said till it was out of your mouth, though. You
Oh,
said,
crap.
it's a chocolate, and you went black magic and went, oh, fuck!
We're leaving that in. We're leaving that in.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she didn't.
Oh, Becca's like, oh no.
Becca, no one's going to hear that and think you were racist. Don't worry about it. And also, we're past the early episodes where you just said cut that every 5 seconds and it doesn't get cut anyway. Just accept it. You
I'm
accidentally
just
said the wrong thing.
Die of mortifyingness. Oh.
It's not racist. You were just naming chocolates, and then you
I
said that
was.
and went, "Oh, hang on a minute, this is a."
But the more Dave says it's not racist, the more racist it becomes.
Well, I'm not racist, but you should have said that.
Anyway, let's move on. Yeah, what we got? Yeah, so basically, this is where like they meet Kamanga again, and he's on full on charm. He's like, "Oh, come in, Mr. Bond. Let's join in." Like there's a big countdown to something. And there
I
isn't
get a bit
really.
of a Hugo Drax air off him.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I find this fascinating. What is this? What is this gun?" He's like, and he kind of uses it on Whisper on the couch he's sitting on. It's kind of like, but he's just a completely different character to what he's been previously. It's
There's a
really weird.
There's a
It's
playful.
kind of more
Yeah.
playing himself,
He
isn't
is
he?
anything but playful, and he wouldn't be at this point because his plan is starting to go to shit.
Yeah,
Um,
but apparently that doesn't matter. It's like, oh, it's a minor inconvenience. It's like, okay, is it really? Because I just blew up your poppy field, which is.
Yeah.
But it's like,
it's not a deal breaker, is it?
no. But
It's on your catchphrase.
yeah, it's not a deal breaker. We'll get to it. But I think I don't mind it because this is where we start to really enjoy him as a villain. And in kind of in some extent, he's having fun, and I kind of like it where villains don't give a shit and they just kind of like enjoy fucking with Bond in a kind of weird sort of way. Yeah, so he ties up Bond and Solitaire to the slow dipping mechanism to feed to sharks, which I think
Every time from now on, we talk about slow dipping mechanism, which is shorthand for putting Bond in a situation to kill him that's long-winded unnecessarily when you could just shoot him for the plot reason that we have to have Bond escape.
It's like
That
Austin Powers,
term
overly,
is this film. That's why
overly
it comes
elaborate. I can't even say. What does he say?
from. Overly elaborate,
Easy
easily.
escapable exotic death. That's it.
This film is where that dipping mechanism is. It's so long-winded. Tie them up, cut them on the arm, and then hoist them up over some water.
Well, essentially, the idea is like, I'm just going to feed you to sharks, basically, and it is pretty brutal to some extent because he basically cuts him to kind of get them hungry and get them
Yeah.
But Bond escaped because this is where he uses his magnet to pick up like the bullet left on the
Yeah,
table.
you expect an
gun.
aircraft carrier to come flying through the window
Yeah,
from somewhere out in the middle of the Pacific, but yeah.
But are these ladies' dresses?
Yeah, it works from hell of a distance. But the fact is, it is set off. It's pretty effective setup and payoff. We've had this watch set up. We've seen it fail once, and now it works. Oh, it's a magnet, of course.
yeah. And so, how does he get free from the ropes? I can't remember now.
There's a little saw in it as well, isn't there?
Oh, right. So that's a new gadget we didn't even know about.
No, we didn't. That's not so good because it's a bit like, you show a gun in the first act, you have to fire it in the third. That should have been trailed a bit more.
Yeah.
And in fact, tonight, I mean, I had noticed it before, but we're going through an awful lot of Bond films here, and, you do forget certain things. All of a sudden, he was free, and I'd looked away in that period, or whatever. Yeah. I had to rewind it, and it's like, oh, it's a little saw. So that's not necessarily the best way to escape in terms of the way the plot set that watch up.
Yeah.
But hey.
But anyway, yeah. So he breaks free. He has a fight. Kamanga gets all like jazzy with a knife. He pulls a knife. He goes like, "It's gonna go all kind of weird on you." He does like a weird sort of like dance fighting style with a knife.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
Yeah, and then, but it doesn't really work because they just both go in the water, and it's like, oh shit, there's a shark, and he puts a pellet in his mouth, and he inflates.
Oh. There was a
I
Like
think,
a balloon.
I think the choreography actually of fights is pretty lazy from Diamond's right the way. Well, for a long time, I'm trying to remember. We'll get to them. I mean, we're doing all the Roger Moore films over the next few weeks anyway, and I'm sure there were some decent fist fights in this run. There must have been, but Diamonds didn't choreograph its fights very well, with the exception of the elevator.
Yeah.
And this film hasn't either. It's not terrible. It's just very perfunctory.
See, wouldn't it be better if like he didn't actually sort of float up like a balloon and you just like heard this like kind of like pop in the water with like in red? Wouldn't that have been better?
Oh, very tasteless.
Well, you say tasteless, Becca, and I'm not going to argue that, but what we saw was so bad.
Yeah, that was cringe. I think anything must be better than that. I think.
I mean, the basic idea is that do we? I'm trying to remember if we even hear that gadget trailed earlier on. Do we get told about that gadget? We do, because I knew what it was, but I can't remember where.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, that is a gadget that's basically compressed air. I don't know how that works in the size of something the size.
Oh, it's a shotgun, isn't it?
Yeah, and it will basically blow you up. But they don't have the technology to do the effect. I'm not going to ridicule it too hard.
No.
It doesn't ruin the film for me particularly.
It does look quite cheap.
I just think it doesn't look very good, and you think, well, you clearly couldn't do that, so what are your other options? And you think, well, when you think back to Majesties and the "he had lots of guts" bit,
Oh, Jesus.
he goes into some sort of thing. You don't see anything except some red coming out. Well, if that got past the censors in 1969, I'm sure Chris's idea of let's just see some blood in the water
Yeah, we could have got eaten by a
would
shark.
have, and that probably would have been a better idea.
I mean,
Once again, Jane Seymour needn't even be there. She's totally nothing in this scene.
I mean, you could kind of just skip the whole idea about the bullet anyway, and just like they fall in the water, and then sharks come in. Bond kind of like knocks Kamanga like into the way the shark gets Kamanga as Bond like sort of climbs out, and you just.
The problem is,
and then Moore says something like "bon appetit" or something like that, or, you know.
Yeah, another witty line.
well, the problem is you've been able, through the way the watch was given to him, to trail the magnet.
Oh,
You've
yeah,
been able
yeah.
to do that because
Yeah, that's
basically
true.
a cup of tea. And basically M has a cup of tea and there's a spoon on his saucer. Bond can call that over and you're like, oh, it's a magnet. I don't know how in that situation you trail a saw. Basically, it was almost like they didn't have the time or
It could have
inclination.
been a knife. He could have like gone like, yeah, and then you wouldn't have.
Yeah, what I'm saying is there would have needed to have been a complete rewrite for what we've been told. I would have been happier if he'd managed to escape that situation and there'd been a bit more of a traditional fight.
Yeah.
But what we're left with is one of the ropiest effects in the series. It's knocked off the Hall of Fame by the entirety of Die Another Day.
Oh.
In terms of its effects, anyway. I mean, there's nothing. I'm not offended by this. It's just not very good, and I just wish they'd found another way.
It's kind of like another cheap laugh, isn't it? It's like it's something. Oh, that's ridiculous. You know,
But I don't think it's meant to be.
it's like Mr. Wynn going woo. You know, it's it's just another campy thing. I'm trying to think of another example, but I don't think we quite get it. I think this is probably.
No.
I think this is probably like the last time this kind of thing happens, with like to the main villain at the end. I think.
Yeah, it's. I'm trying to think of another one. When we get, I think the fact is we'll deal with it if and when we get to it, because we can't remember off the top of our heads. But if we get to like another really really silly villain exit, we'll obviously point it out.
No, I think it's what you got. Yeah, the silly.
I don't think there's anything quite this silly. But I have to say, Brad Whitaker's he met his Waterloo's a bit lame.
I think the line is a little bit like, "Meh." Even though it's Dalton, you still think, "Meh." Well, it grates for me anyway.
Yeah, but he can't deliver lines.
No, that's the thing. It's very serious.
Brilliant Bond, but don't give him humour. There's no point.
No, you can see Roger doing it, but Tim not so much.
I can picture all of them, almost all of them doing it. Yeah.
It's like very perfunctory. It's like, he matches Waterloo. It's like, oh,
Yeah, again, all of this is kind of quick, though. His final thing with the villain, it's over quite quickly, and they get a train.
Yeah. Again, this comes like quite a common thing, like a recap of a villain turning up at the end and for Bond to fight.
Well, the henchman we'd almost forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot
big
about
thing
who's
in this
sort of
series, isn't
dead.
it?
Yeah, this happens a few times in the series. I think anyway.
Come back for one last scare.
Well, well, let's think. I mean, it's happened a few times already. Well, it certainly happens next week.
Yes.
There's loads of examples.
It kind of happens in Goldfinger, though.
It happens in From Russia with Love, because we've almost gotten Rosa Klebb, and she comes.
It kind of happens in Goldfinger, but it is actually Goldfinger himself.
Yeah, I wouldn't count that really, but I see what you mean.
It's kind of like the same setup, though, isn't it? Really.
It happens in Diamonds with Winton Kid. Because he's beaten the villain.
Yes, yeah.
Oh yeah, and they pop up at the end.
Happens this week, happens next week, so that's already like 4 or 5 times.
I think the other example is Tomorrow Never Dies. So it's like the henchman save for last.
Yeah, Stampers afterwards. It's not a reprise because it's all part of the same sequence. But yeah, you get that. Yeah, there's a few.
I suppose technically, the world is not enough.
Reynard is not the villain; he's the henchman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's safe Marseille.
But yeah, in terms of where you think you've almost forgotten, and it's he's won.
Yeah.
Probably not quite so much. But to this point, yeah, it's happened a few times, and it happens next week as well.
It does.
So we go to a train sequence, and I've watched both of these train sequences in about.
I just love the idea that He's actually just hiding in a mill. Like that must have been like a really rough time for him. It's getting like sort of just chucked about in just like in a bag.
Well, I'm a bit concerned about how much postage did they have to pay.
Oh no!
I mean, I'm just imagining him at a post office counter, sat on that tiny scale.
And he must have killed that train staff as well. There's like at least like a couple of guys. Like
yes, yeah, definitely.
He must have at least killed them.
Yeah.
But that's never established. But yeah, so he like sort of tracks Bond down on the train, and they have basically a claw fight. I was going to say fist fight.
Bond is trying to teach her gin rummy.
Yeah. Which is kind of like, I'll teach you cards.
Look, these are different cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, different card game.
They could have been playing top trumps.
Yeah. But didn't she prove herself actually to be winning as well? She actually beats Bond. Or am I misremembering
she wins, doesn't she?
Yes, because it's like unlucky in cards.
Yeah.
Well.
And Bond goes like, oh well.
Mm.
Oh well, whatever. And then it's like, right, let's get some sleep then.
no romance, it's just unlucky in cards, lucky in love, I think. Yeah, it's basically, just have some sex now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is really alluring, and most women respond to that. They beat you at cards and you just go, let's fuck.
But we don't get a chance to because, as we said, Teehee returns.
Yeah. Teehee returns.
Basically, I do hear Teehee a lot in that scenario.
And Solitaire gets like locked in a bed.
She's just such a nothing character. I mean, the next time we see anything like this is The Spy Who Loved Me, and you're a Massiver.
Yeah, but you know what? The same thing fucking happens there.
Yes, it does, but we at least half give a shit. Do you remotely really care what happens to Solitaire?
Well,
yeah, she survives. That's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying you want anything bad to happen. She made any good impression on any of us.
without giving spoilers, I probably would in Spy Love Me, but I don't think Barbara Bach is actually quite good in that film.
Sorry, you don't or do?
I don't think she's particularly great, and I don't think
No,
character...
I don't actually.
And I don't think her character is well served.
I mean, she's quite attractive. That's part of it. But I have to say, a lot of it is the character and the writing.
Mm.
And it gets past her limitations. She's not a particularly good actress. But I'm kind of invested in what the film has given me of her and Bond at that point.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, I've got nothing against Jane Seymour, but they've just cast something so
well.
bland.
I mean, like, let's face it. Would it be believable if she did get involved in the fight anyway? It just wouldn't.
Not
be
asking.
like...
No. That's not my problem. My problem is not that she's shut away. My problem is that we're in any way supposed to care.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in Solitaire at all. This film has just given us... It's a bit like Domino, but it's also a bit like Honey Rider. We've been given, basically... You know the term sort of man-child? Well, this is a woman-child?
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's a bit... Just basically, like, a bit naive and a bit more like...
She's not remotely close to adulthood, even though she's in her 20s.
Mm.
No, she's still very kind of virginal and very naive, and yeah.
But anyway, so she gets locked away. Bond has a brief fight with
It's
Tiki.
quite quick.
He uses his claw against his face, and he's like going, hey, and and Bond uses his tweezers or whatever to kind of like make his claw lock.
I'm used to women particularly having a like a makeup bag or a grooming bag or something with tweezers in it or something like that. Never seen a woman with a grooming suitcase.
No, she has a lot of...
Actually, I always
that
thought
was a fucking huge thing.
I always
like tweezers and pliers and.
It's always prerogative, to take lots of luggage,
I always assumed that was Rogers. Because he's so well groomed.
No,
it's all for the hairspray.
He's got a case full of Falcon or Cossack hairspray. That's all he needs.
and condoms.
No,
hairspray.
he doesn't need those. He doesn't wear condoms.
No, they just turn to gold anyway, so it doesn't matter. He does the whole thing where he chucks tea out the window.
This is the 70s. This isn't. He wouldn't turn women gold. This is the era of the Bay City Rollers. He'd fuck them and they turn tartan.
You said the Bay City Rollers in a whole new light. Oh god.
Anyway,
I think he goes out the window.
Yeah. I've always got this impression that being chucked out of a window of a train, it necessarily means you're dead. Like,
I've seen that before in the Bond, before in the Bond movies.
Yeah,
so
I don't know why I always just picture like it just gets chucked on like a little ditch for fields. I mean, sure, it would hurt, but would it kill you?
We don't know.
No, it depends where you land and how you land, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I was in... It's got to be analogous to falling out of a car. Probably slightly worse because you fall from higher. But if you think about driving in a car, if I was driving along somewhere near a school, trying to stick somewhere close to 20 mile an hour because that's the speed limit, and I fell out of the car, I'd probably bruise and scrape myself.
Mm.
If I was on the motorway doing like 80 or something and I fell out of the car, maybe it would kill me. I don't know.
Yeah. And also, it's also movie logic as well. You have to like lend yourself to, innit? It's the real world isn't.
It's basically if you're not decapitated or shot in the brain.
Yeah.
Chance.
Yeah, there is like a possibility. It's like, oh, you got shot like in the stomach or you got shot in the shoulder.
Mm.
In reality, you probably could die from that. In fact, if you get shot in the stomach, you will actually die. But in movie logic, it's like, oh, there's a chance he might pull through.
Area. It's like when you're shot in the arm. Well, With all the damage through muscles and bones and nerves, that arm may never work properly again, even if you survive.
Yeah. But in most action movies, it's like, oh, it's passed through,
yeah,
it's
but
fine.
it's like silenced pistols. It's the rule of film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It just felt, but then again, it's just like, I guess we have to just. It's the end of the film. We have to just assume that he's dead, and then it ends randomly. We see Baron Samedi back
On the front of the train.
Yeah, on the front of the train, laughing manically.
I just thought that was the film trying to be too clever.
There's a nice touch though, as you
I
said
don't think
earlier. He's an
it's
illusionist.
just a touch. Sorry, Becca.
No, I was gonna say, as you said earlier, he's an illusionist. So it kind of, you don't know if he's alive or dead, or if he's come back. You know, if he's actually undead.
Is it more symbolic? You know, I mean, I think it's more like, I think it's just there to add to the mystique of all the voodoo stuff and all the, you know, the supernatural elements. It's kind of like adds a little bit more intrigue to it.
Yeah, definitely. As to the supernatural elements, kind of like death and rebirth and things like that. So,
and it is like a memorable ending to end on, you know. So,
yeah, it sticks in the mind.
Yeah, definitely. So
there we have it.
Yeah, there we are. There's our first Roger entry.
But overall, did we enjoy it? What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I definitely enjoyed watching it. It's a good fun watch. You know, I think it's one of Moore's better films. I think we will see there aren't many as good as Live and Let Die. I mean, there's only like maybe a couple. And even they are debatable depending on your tastes. So, yeah, I think this is one of Roger's best. I think.
Dave, what do you reckon?
I've never seen anyone rank this right at the bottom. I mean, I will say that. I mean, we'll talk about License to Kill and For Your Eyes Only and other films that we like, or you know, even The Living Daylights that some people just really don't get on with, and Live and Let Die is a good quality film. Roger Moore may not be your taste. He's not really mine. I mean, I've talked about that before. But this is a really solid debut. I don't think it breaks any new ground, but it does kind of slightly new twists on old tricks. It does kind of, you know, just makes him enough different from what we've seen. I've often thought, as somebody who isn't a Roger Moore fan, how would I feel if it was like 1973 now and I knew what was coming? You know, as a Bond fan, you think, well, 12 years of someone I don't really like that much. Well, obviously that couldn't happen, you know, in terms of knowing what was coming. I have to say, if I'd walked out of this and someone said he's going to be Bond for a while, I think I'd be really quite happy. We can't keep seeing... I mean, Connery ran himself into the ground as Bond. It needed slightly freshening up. And I think this is a really positive film. The problems I have are partly to do with the fact that I know what's coming with him. So when I hear him talk to a woman, it always sounds sleazier than perhaps it is in this film. It's got one or two goofy moments, which is a precursor of what's coming. And I think that the story finishes a long way before the film does. And that's a problem. But it doesn't have the associated pacing problem. This film doesn't have any pacing problems at all. You know, you might think, well, that scene needs cutting there, but you're not really bored. You just, well, why did they run it that long?
Yeah.
I think this is a very positive first go for Roger Moore. I think Guy Hamilton has redeemed himself after his previous attempt. I still don't think Tom Mankiewicz fits the Bond series at all. But I think this is very, very positive. I think it has negative connotations for what's coming in terms of the humour, but also its portrayal of women is really, even by Bond film standards, a step backwards from where we've been. Only 2 films ago we had Tracy. Even in the last film.
And it's about to get worse.
And in the next film we had Tiffany Case, who I really don't like. But in the first third of that film... She is pretty sort of self-reliant, let's put it that way. And we get an agent in this film who wouldn't graduate primary school, let alone anything else. She is absolutely abysmally written and acted.
Oh, good night.
And the lead Bond girl is naive to the point of coming off as childlike as well.
I don't think she's badly acted. It's like the character she's given.
She's another
I
Catwoman,
do
isn't
think
she?
she's badly acted,
And
but I have
probably
to say,
directed.
No, I have to be fair there, Chris. I do think she's badly acted, but at the same point, how could she have been any better with what she was given? Yeah. Is there any scope for a better performance there? I'm not sure. But let's be positive here. What we've got is a reasonably good-looking film with, I think, an excellent debut from Roger Moore here, who's not my Bond, never has been. He looks the part, he's very good in it, it's a decent story, they've tried to add some complexity to the plot, they've tried to take him places he's never been before, and if I walked out of this in 1973, I'd be happy. Good solid Bond film, I've enjoyed this.
That sounds about right.
So you concur, Becca, then? I
agree, no, definitely, yeah, it's a good solid debut. And yeah, I mean, obviously, Roger Moore isn't my era, but he's one of my favourite Bonds. I'm a bit of a soft spot. But as I say, like, you know, growing up having watched these films, you do develop like a fondness for them. And yeah, it's definitely a very tonal shift from kind of like hard-edged Connery films. So this is definitely kind of what was needed to reboot the series in the 70s.
A breath of fresh air.
Yes, I agree, Chris. Definitely.
I think as well. I mean, Connery's performance. I mean, a lot of people say Diamonds is a Roger film. Well, they're kind of right in that it's a bit silly and goofy and all the rest of it. But as I said at the time, the portrayal of Bond, I thought Sean Connery came off as a total misanthrope. He came off as someone who's not enjoying life, not enjoying being there, and he plays it like an elderly veteran. I just don't like anything about him in the role. We've now got a guy who looks unflappable and keen. And that's just gold at this moment. This is a series that could have easily died around now. And just before we sort of get into our sign-offs, I often talk about box office. This has actually done a little bit worse in the United States than Diamonds. Diamonds did about 43, 44. This did about 35. But overall, worldwide take. Diamonds did 116. This does 162.
Wow.
That is a huge jump. So worldwide, the series has been invigorated, and I think it's facing the 70s in really rude health at this point.
It's just the shot in the arm that it needed, really.
Yeah, well, I think it was a breath of fresh air that spoke to the audience as well. I think also that helps. You know, it's I imagine it would have been a bit of a gamble to kind of like change like after all these years, but I think they needed to rejuvenate, and I think Roger Moore was a change, but he's also like was a spark of fun, and it was like a injection of a new energy, and it just felt like, oh, this is like a new thing, and I think it just worked. I think it just paid off.
You can't fully slag him, can you, Chris? Because even if you didn't like him, just think about the fact that at the moment, Lazenby's not exactly a Connery lookalike, but he's close enough. He had his hair cut the same way, he had the same suits. It's played, he even wore a kilt, which we talked about at the time.
Yeah, we discussed that already.
Roger Moore, I mean, if you were recasting, let's say, Indiana Jones, I know that it's a bit different because the outfit is more iconic than any uniform with Bond. But you wouldn't cast somebody as different from Harrison Ford as Roger Moore is from
Connery.
Yeah, that's it,
so
exactly.
This is incredibly brave, and I did say in the intro, when I wasn't being particularly kind about Roger Moore, I'd say some nice things about him. And one of the nice things I would say is that this is an incredibly brave performance. Because it's largely comedic, or his run is largely comedic, we dismiss it because he just plays it for laughs. But after what's come before, we haven't had 6 Bonds at this point. We've had 2, and one's been completely forgotten. So we've effectively had 1 Bond at this point. And he's gone in and done something totally, totally different with it.
No, it's very brave.
Incredibly brave.
Like, people complained about Daniel Craig being cast, like, Bond, what are you on about? It's like, well, you know, Roger Moore is obviously a very handsome chap, but it doesn't exactly fit Fleming's description, so... Not
at all. And people look at... you might enjoy Brosnan more, and I said this in one of the earlier episodes as well. You might like Pierce Brosnan more, for example, because fitter, better looking, whatever you might think, depending on who you are as the viewer. But Roger Moore broke that ground.
Yeah, definitely broke that new ground.
I think Roger had the strength of the Saint. I think with viewers, you know, that was a popular show. He was playing like a similar sort of spy kind of espionage guy.
Definitely, and Ivanhoe as well. The kind of gung ho action stuff.
Yeah.
What I don't know is where those shows were popular though.
Yeah, it depends really, doesn't it?
Because we're talking about the Saint. Where was the Saint big? I mean, it might have been. The answer to that, by the way, might be everywhere. I don't know. But I have to assume, as a huge franchise, Bond had to open in markets that Roger Moore wasn't known.
What kind of amazes me is there was like in one of the Bond anthologies, someone did a caricature of what is described in the Fleming books, and what they actually pulled out looked like a remarkably rough and rugged version of Moore. It was not like, rather than like someone looks a bit more like Connery or anything like that. It looked like in that kind of sort of like longer sort of face and that kind of similar sort of hair, with like kind of similar sort of features that were a bit more sharp and a bit more like a little bit more crooked. You know, it's not like a less handsome version of Roger Moore, but it looked more Roger Moore than any of the Bonds. So you can kind of say that.
I don't really have a problem that they cast him.
Yeah, it's just like
I don't,
out of all the.
I mean, the thing is, he played it until he was too old, and obviously, as Bonds go along, we've seen this with Daniel Craig. As they get more popular, or at least they get more established in the role, they get a bit more say. And they start getting... I mean, I'm not saying they can write scripts and choose directors. That depends on the actor. But they can at least have some input into how they're portrayed. And there's no doubt, as it goes along, Roger Moore pushes it in more and more and more of a goofy direction. And it doesn't work. I don't care that he might be lighter and not really big in action. It doesn't work. But at this point, yes, I think he's a little bit too old for a first-time Bond. But this slightly suaver, less quick-to-action version of the character is perfectly valid. And it's really brave as well. I mean, you're following... I mean, all right, they're going to write him a nice big check for this. But if you're Roger Moore and you are followed, remember how big this series was when Goldfinger and Thunderball came out. Remember how it was the biggest film series of all time at one point. And only a handful of years later, you got a sign on the dotted line to do this, when the only person who tried to do that before was One and Out. And you don't go in with your hair dyed brown, going, you know, Bond, James Bond. Right? You've actually gone in and done your portrayal of it. I think Roger Moore, whatever you think of him, was incredibly brave to go in and do it this way.
Amen to that, I think.
Good old Rog. And you know what? He still flies the flag for Bond as well.
Yeah, nearly done.
Well, isn't that wonderful? He's 88. He should be just at home relaxing. And he goes all over the country promoting this series. And basically, I mean, I'm not sure I agree with him, but I mean, he said that Spectre was the best Bond film he'd ever seen. Well, whether he believes that or not, even to say it is like...
Didn't he say that with all, like, last time, didn't he say that when Skyfall came out?
Oh, he probably thinks they're getting better all the time. He loves Craig, and I do...
Yeah, it's one of them like, oh, just say it, Roger.
No, I know, but I do genuinely believe he thinks Daniel Craig's a bit special.
Yeah, he places a lot of faith in him.
Well, having said that, I saw him a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about when he was approached, and he said then George Lazenby did one. And he said Roger came back to do one of the best of all the Bond films.
Uh-huh.
Diamonds Are Forever.
So, I think you were like, really?
Understand why Roger
yeah, really?
like that, 'cause it's more him, you know? But the end result is, I think Roger Moore was... What he's slowly doing to me is joining the pack.
Okay.
You know, we've got 6 James Bonds, and there's been all of them, and then miles away from that, Roger Moore. And he is coming to join the pack. Wherever I might end up ranking him, I'm starting to like actually kind of enjoy his run because I've seen a few of them now. We are watching this fresh. I haven't seen any for a while. And tonight's been a good start, and I'm actually looking forward to next week when we come full circle, because the film we cover next week is the first Bond film I ever saw.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Oh, mementos.
Mm.
On that night. Oh no, carry on.
I was just going to say, I wish I could remember the first Bond film I actually saw, but, it's all just a vague memory for me.
No, I think it was either probably Spy Love Me or V to Kill, perhaps on the small screen. But I think in the big screen, I think it must have been Tomorrow Never Dies. But that's as far as I can remember.
I think
one
the
of the
thing
three.
is, it depends when. I mean, when I saw The Man with the Golden Gun, as I said in the intro episode, it was like around Christmas time. So it was a special big release.
Oh.
Right? Whereas they did start showing seasons of them, didn't they? Where like every Tuesday or whatever, there'd be a Bond film. Well, if you got introduced to Bond during one of those seasons and you saw, say, 3 weeks in a row of Bond films, I can understand how you might not remember which was the first.
No.
But mine was The Man with the Golden Gun. So
That'd be nice. So it has special memories for you.
Yeah, it does. And I have to say, I loved it at the time. So it'll be interesting to revisit it, because it's not a very well thought of film.
No, I remember going to see it with the Majesty's Secret Service double bill, and to have a film that ended so soberly as that, and have something that's quite fun and quite frothy as Golden Gun, I think was kind of a good mix. But
Uneven mix, but okay.
Well, no.
Doesn't it make more sense? I mean, I know with the double bill you're on about, and we didn't get it down here.
No, I think it was a last minute addition, because I think obviously Christopher Lee had sadly passed away at the time. So.
Oh yeah.
But the obvious thing to me is, if you were going to double bill a Majesty's with anything,
It probably would be Golden
there'd be
Gun.
two choices. One would be Casino Royale.
Sure.
But that was already double bill with Skyfall, so I can understand how it wasn't that.
No.
But its natural sequel is For Your Eyes Only.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, I can agree with that one. But I think it was just what had happened at the time.
The Christopher Lee bit.
Yeah, mystery film, and it was like, Christopher Lee passed away. Oh dear, quick.
I'd have gone if it had been here.
Sure. Well, on that note, shall we wrap up?
Yes, let's wrap up.
Definitely. It's been a very, very positive start, though, to a James Bond that's never been my favourite. I've enjoyed tonight.
Oh, that's good. On a positive note. So yeah, thanks very much for listening along, everybody. Chris and Dave, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Somewhere. Oh, okay. Oh, you want Pacific? Okay.
Yes,
yeah,
please.
I'm on Twitter at Cinematronics, where my website, where you can find this podcast and my other podcast. It is kind of being neglected at the moment, but it will be back with a vengeance. Is at cinematronics.co.uk.
See, we're not jealous about you having another podcast, but at the same time, you neglecting it means this one's more important, which makes us feel great. So that's
Yay! Deciding our ego.
Yeah, you can find me at facebook.com/thepastykid or at thepastykid1976 on Twitter.
I'm at RV Movies. I'm going to change it someday, I don't know. But you can find us, expect us to talk, at gmail.com. Send us an email, please. Again, we have no emails. Please drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Sounds desperate every single week.
What Twitter would you change yours to?
I don't know. I had this discussion last time, but I haven't done it yet.
What
Anyway.
what would you say, Dave? What do you reckon you should change Becca's Twitter handle to?
I think it should be an ever-shifting one with the identity of this series.
Yeah,
So it'd be Bond Girl at the moment, and that's nothing to do with me. But like, she can't be Marion Ravenwood because we already follow a Marion Ravenwood on.
We do.
But then it would have to be we'd do something like that.
Change it all the time.
When we get to Star Trek and so on.
Cool. In the meantime, you can find us at Expected to Talk or Facebook/Expected to Talk. And we will return with The Man with a Golden Gun.
Good night.
Man with the golden gun.
Bibbidi bang, we shall see.
He has a powerful weapon. Yeah, it beats his cock.
Yeah, he charges $1 million a shot.
It's very expensive, don't you know?
I know. I mean, I can knock one off the wrist for $5 if you're interested.
That's not the kind of shot that they're on about.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was meant to be all cheeky and that.
On that note, I'm going to sign off.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.